Not yet. Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ms. Gutierrez, can you do a roll call for us, please?
Yes. Ms. Grijalva?
Yes.
Dr. Gribosha?
Here.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Here.
Ms. Shaw?
Here.
Ms. Counts?
Here.
Thank you.
Ms. Counts,
Yes.
it's really difficult to hear.
Okay, we'll all be very cognizant about speaking directly into the mic.
So for our land acknowledgement today, we have Danielle Tashkint Escalante, who's a 12th grader at Choya High School. Danielle is a member of the Tohono O'odham Nation. Danielle, are you with us today?
Yes,
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us. Can you see that on your screen, the land acknowledgement?
Excuse me?
Do you see the land acknowledgement on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
On behalf of the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District, I, Danielle Tashquin Escalante, acknowledge that the schools, buildings, and facilities of the Tucson Unified School District reside on the ancestral homeland of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the federally recognized tribal land of the Paspayaki tribe.
Thank you, Danielle. And you were with us at our last board meeting, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay, nice to see you again.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. And now next up we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have a 6th grader with us today from Wakefield Middle School, Merrick Williams. Merrick is a 6th grade student with a special talent for mathematics. In fact, he is so advanced that he is currently taking algebra coursework as a 6th grader. Merrick also is talented with computer science, knowing how to code and navigate VEX, MIT Scratch, and other programs. Merrick is kind, funny, and is currently involved in flag football. We are very proud of him. Merrick, are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for being here with us today. We're going to go ahead and pull up that flag, and once you see it, you can go ahead and begin whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next up is our superintendent's report. Dr. Trujillo?
Yes. Board Clerk Shaw, members of the governing board, and momentarily, I'm sure we'll have our governing board president.
Can't hear you.
When she logs on. Testing 1, 2, 3. We good? Did we skip an item? Okay.
Agenda adjustments.
Agenda adjustments. I have no recommended agenda adjustments on behalf of the administration. Okay, superintendent's update. Board Clerk Shaw, members of the governing board, public, welcome. Have a number of items that we would like to update the board and the community on at this time. A couple of weeks ago, we were able to deliver a long-awaited victory to our community and our seniors. Graduation and prom have been authorized. Just as a recap for the community, all the district's high schools have been authorized to host their graduation ceremonies at their respective stadiums. There is a little typo there on the second bullet. There's not a 4-guest minimum, there's a 4-guest maximum. So we certainly don't want people rolling in with 15 or 20. So I will make sure and change that. But again, this is a 4-guest maximum per graduating senior. We're going to require hard tickets for the event. And again, masks and social distancing will be implemented during graduation ceremonies. And there's been really a lot of support for making sure that we have a ceremony for class of 2020 seniors that were not able to have their graduation ceremony last year. So I just want to make a couple of notes of distinction. We are in the planning phases right now to be able to offer an in-person graduation ceremony for class of 2020. As each graduation ceremony is unique to its respective class, we did not want to mix class of 2020 seniors with class of 2021, which is why we're planning a ceremony for class of 2020 in the month of June, so that the month of May can be focused on graduation ceremonies for class of 2021. We will have more details as they become available as we progress in our planning. I'm strongly encouraging, to the extent possible, that all of our guests and our graduates themselves, that if you are able to obtain a COVID-19, whether it be Moderna, Pfizer, or the single-shot Johnson & Johnson, anywhere in the community, it is strongly encouraged that any guest and any senior do their best to obtain both doses of any of the available vaccine at least 2 weeks prior to graduation, which will be the last week in May. Prom, we have good news for prom. Also, for the class of 2021, district high schools have been authorized to hold prom events this spring. A couple of important notes. We are requiring that prom events be held outdoors on each respective campus. We are asking for masks. We're requiring masks at these events. Now, with these parameters in play, we also wanted to give autonomy and creativity to our senior classes throughout the district as each senior class works hand in hand with their respective administrative teams to be creative, to be flexible, to design an event that's going to be unique to each school community. Food and refreshments need to be prepackaged, or schools will be able to utilize food from food trucks that will be stationed at separate parts of the event. There will be food trucks. If food trucks are going to be utilized, they will be well and away from any dance floor activity going on. There'll be a separate section in each campus event for food to ensure that appropriate distancing has been implemented. All of our high schools right now are hard at work putting together their prom plans. We will work hand in hand with legal and risk management to make sure that we are approving plans for proms that not only create memorable events for our students, but are also safe and responsible in this age of COVID. As I stated, for graduation ceremonies, we are strongly encouraging all of our seniors attending these events and their guests. If you can get vaccinated, get both doses of any available vaccine, please do so. We strongly encourage it at least 2 weeks prior to the prom event. We're excited a little bit later on tonight that you're going to hear about summer academic programming available for all of the district students throughout the district. We were able to publicize last week the details of the comprehensive summer experience that we've put together for all the students in the district. Tonight you're going to hear a little bit more detail, but just as a little bit of a preview, we'll be talking about free summer school classes focused on academic recovery in English language arts, math, and science for all pre-K through 8th grade students, available at each individual campus throughout the month of June. And these will be full school weeks, 5 days a week, 4 hours of instruction. We will be providing free breakfast and lunch to all students each and every single day. And transportation is going to be fully provided to all students that are attending summer experience classes, even if they're not eligible. So even those transportation, those families that don't receive services and receive a denial during the school year with regard to application for transportation and bus services, we're going to go ahead and transport them as well, courtesy of the CARES Act funding that's being brought into the district to remove any barriers that families may experience to getting their students into summer academic programming. For the high schools, we're going to be focusing on credit recovery. Each high school will host its own summer school classes that will allow students to make up credits. You will be hearing a little bit more tonight about 3 14-day sessions that will kick off June 2nd and end July 23rd. And each of these 3 sessions will be allowing students to make up credits. And if students participate in all 3 sessions, they'll be able to make up 3 classes. That's 1.5 credits between June 2nd and July 23rd. Not bad. Then when you factor in that we're also going to have 3 14-day afternoon and early evening sessions that will be at 2 designated hubs in the district, Tucson High and Palo Verde, our students can make up even more credits. So there's going to be some great opportunities. We're going to have supper services for those early afternoon, evening sessions, and of course we're going to do breakfast and lunch for our regular day sessions during the time period of June 2nd through July 23rd. Transportation also free of charge through SunTrans. So TUSD Transportation will be serving all of our K-8 students, and thanks to the awesome team over at SunTrans, free transportation will continue to be provided for any of our high school students throughout the city, regardless of the program and the school that they're attending. And the featured item for tonight, something that we're very, very excited about, the board will consider the administration's proposal for a comprehensive investment in the arts, early childhood education, and interscholastic programs. You're going to hear a lot more detail later on tonight, but here are the highlights for those of you watching in the community tonight. We're bringing forward a proposal that sees new instruments and new equipment for band and orchestra programs across all 86 schools. The replacement of saxophones and trumpets, trombones, cases, music stands, you name it. If it's equipment in a band and orchestra room and program, it's on the docket to be replaced or repaired. Also, the expansion of music and art education into the last 14 elementary schools that still don't have a full-time arts educator, whether it's visual or music. Tonight, we have a proposal that will bring back the arts and the music to every single TUSD elementary school and replace the numerous positions that were cut during the recession era in the early part of the 2010s. We're very, very excited about this portion of the proposal. We'll also see this proposal funding for new instruments and uniforms and equipment for all district mariachi programs, not just the high schools, but also our programs over at Davis and Johnny White and Roskridge as well. New uniforms for elementary and middle school boys and girls sports. Those are all the sports that we run in elementary and middle schools. That's basketball, and it's also cross country and track and field. We also have a several $100,000 badly needed track renovation at Rincon UHS on the docket as part of this proposal. And this is probably my favorite. For far too long, arts teachers in this district have received no budget or have had to go into their own pocket to be able to pay for their supplies. Tonight, we're bringing a range of $1,000 to $5,000 individual teacher budget increases for each and every single art, music, orchestra, band, theater arts, dance, and choir teacher in the district. And of course, it'll be dependent on the size of the program and the school. And lastly, just as a big picture highlight, a $500,000 investment in new shade structures and playground equipment for our pre-K programs as an investment in our youngest customers, our preschool students. And lastly, as I said in the last superintendent's report at the end of March, AZ Merit is mandated. However, we are going to be respectful and supportive of any parent's right to keep their students home, especially if they are remote learners. I just want to remind our families there are no negative consequences for students that do not take AZ Merit, and there is no negative consequences for any school that does not test 95% of its required testing population. That is a normal requirement of the Arizona Department of Education, that any individual school must test 95% of its required students. That requirement has been waived for this year, so there are no consequences for schools for not reaching the 95% testing. I just wanted to take a moment as I wrap up this report. We're excited about being able later on in the agenda to appropriately thank our employees who served us so proudly and so well during the pandemic era. We're very, very proud to bring a compensation package later on in this agenda. But I do want to speak to why there was not an attachment available. So first, I want to make sure that we all understand that this is a negotiations process, and we always want to make sure that our governing board members have an opportunity to view any salary and compensation information coming from negotiations in executive session. It's for this reason that during the normal posting period, 72 hours before the meeting, we still were having salary and compensation discussions and proposals with our partners in the different employee associations. And out of respect to that process, we did not put an attachment up publicly because we knew that we wouldn't be finishing in time and that we wanted such attachment to be reviewed by our governing board members inside of executive session. The governing board has since reviewed the attachment that you'll see later on tonight. They've reviewed it and they've provided feedback in executive session. It will be shown tonight and it will be posted publicly immediately as that item is discussed. And the item has been scheduled as study action. This allows the governing board within tonight's agenda to make the decision to either take action or give additional direction to staff and return it or keep it as a study item. And with that, President Counts, that concludes my report.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Counts? Can I ask a question?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva.
So, Dr. Trujillo, if the Pima County Health Department lifts some restrictions, if our positivity rates go down, that kind of thing, can we look at the number of guests per graduate for ceremonies?
Absolutely, Mrs. Grijalva. We are ready and willing to relax restrictions as the Pima County Health Department advises us, and they're still quite a ways away to graduation. I mean, we're still dealing with maybe 4 or 5 weeks out. We would gladly examine the situation in another couple of weeks to see if we can increase the amount of attendees. And then also we want to make sure that we're flexible because each senior class is of a different size. So if you have a smaller sized high school graduating class where that limitation may not make as much sense, we're also willing to look at each individual school.
Great. I just wanted to put that out there because I know that I've had a couple of parents of seniors asking, and May is a long way away, and so I don't think it's that long, but I'm glad that you're going to be looking at it, and if we can get an update if that changes, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
All right. Can everybody hear me? Good. Okay. Now we're moving on to call to the audience. Ms. Shaw.
During the audience call, the board clerk will recognize speakers and maintain order by setting appropriate limitations. The governing board is committed to the safety of the entire TUSD community. In order to observe the recommended safeguards for reducing the rate of spread of COVID-19, the following procedures related to the call to the audience portion of board meetings will be observed. All public comments for the meeting were accepted in written form. Public comments will be read into the record by the program coordinator of staff services to the governing board. Our staff will make sure each board member receives a copy. At the conclusion of the call to the audience, the governing board president will ask if individual board members wish to respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the board, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. By law, at most 2 board members can address any single issue raised during the call to the audience. Contents of this card are public information. And our first letter is from Lorraine Case.
Good evening. During call to the audience in the January 5th, 2021 board meeting, our family's 2020 graduate wrote in about the importance of including 2020 graduates in an upcoming ceremony for those who still wish to walk at a traditional ceremony. After President Leila Count's question Dr. Trujillo about it, he said, absolutely, we would call the class of 2020 back for our upcoming graduation ceremonies. The day brought us tremendous hope. Thank you for that moment. It meant the world to us. I know there are many families like ours. In our family, we have a 2020 graduate who battled depression, anxiety, and multiple health problems to graduate. Our dream is to see her walk across the stage. She had a drive-through event, which was wonderful in many ways. Unfortunately, like many divorced or separate parents, only one parent, one vehicle was allowed entrance into the ceremony. In our family's case, the graduate's father couldn't enter the ceremony in a separate vehicle. He soon after developed COVID and spent 4 months in the hospital learning to walk and talk again. Thankfully, he survived. After a very rough year, every parent deserves to see their student receive a diploma. As of now, some schools are confused about 2020 graduates participating in the upcoming ceremony. To me, this is simply a lack of communication, which can easily be fixed. A simple post by TUSD's social media account can state that 2020 graduates may contact their high schools to participate in May graduations, if they wish. If steps are not taken soon to announce this opportunity, the consequences are shattering to the families who have held out hope and held on to caps and gowns for an entire year. Please make it publicly known to all, including school staff and the public, that 2020 graduates who wish to may still walk in May graduations that their schools are already planning to hold. It will mean the world to those who jump at the opportunity. I am willing to volunteer and help in any way I can to make this dream possible for my family and others alike. To many, this is not a simple ceremony. It holds great meaning as a public validation of hard work and resiliency in spite of many obstacles. This is equity. I trust you will stay true to your previous invitation. We look forward to seeing our graduate walk across the stage. Congratulations to all the graduates. Thank you, Lorraine Case.
Next up is Beth Putnam Hidalgo.
During the governing board meeting on March 30th, it appeared that new time limits on discussions were under effect. Where did the time limits on board discussions of issues come from? Where were they voted on, and where are they being instituted? As a longtime board watcher, I do understand that these meetings can be quite long. However, limiting discussion when 3 members of the board are brand new and the board president is also new in that role seems counterintuitive, unconstructive, and potentially limits board transparency. Between the newly mandated ending time of the meeting and the calls to General Counsel to explain procedure, I am concerned that questions are being called to vote prematurely. Is this the interest of saving time? Time limits do not allow full discussion of the issues board members were elected to decide on. As this body is really the last stop for public input into policy decisions, and open meeting laws ensures that meetings among all board members must be public, time limitations on board discussion does not bode well for governing board transparency. Please explain. Beth Putnam Hidalgo.
Next is Amy and Jack Sonera.
Board members, thank you for taking the time to hear our concerns. We have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old who have been attending BRICTA Early Learning Center since they were 12 weeks old. We are here to advocate for our children to not have to wear masks all day long in school and even when they are playing outside. We are here to advocate that parents should have the choice whether or not they want their children to wear a mask in school. 2 years old and older, I believe, is too young to have to keep a mask on their face all day long. It's actually cruel when there is no science supporting it. When I drop my children off at class and am forced to cover their faces with masks, it makes me feel so sick when there's no data supporting that this is helping. When I see the other children in their classes with drool-soaked masks, I want to cry. How can this be healthy for them? Keeping that bacteria-filled mask on their face for hours is not healthy. Fresh air is. The teacher's school also makes my 2-year-old wear a mask when she is playing outside, when the emergency order the district is following allows for exceptions when kids are outside in playground settings with distancing. Please, as parents yourselves, please hear our concerns and be advocates for us parents to choose what's best for our children. Please use common sense rather than just obeying what is put out there when there is no science backing up the claims. Please follow the science, which shows that children are not major spreaders of the coronavirus, therefore not requiring them to wear masks. BRCTA has not had to shut down due to any outbreaks, even before masking was required. Now that the majority of the teachers are vaccinated, why are masks still being required? If the concern was that the teachers would get sick, we are calling on you as board members who represent our kids to help us parents communicate and relay our concerns to the Arizona Department of Health to get this measure rescinded, or at the very least changed to say that it should be the parents' choice whether they want their child to wear a mask or not. There are many parents who feel the same way, and as much as we love the teachers at BRCTA, we are currently looking into different schooling options for our kids that don't require masks. We are asking for your help because we want to stay at BRCTA. However, we have dealt with this long enough, and if no change is on the horizon, we will move our kids out of TUSD. This is a call to action for you to help us and help our children. Thank you, concerned parents Amy and Jack Soniera.
Next is Lillian Fox.
As is often the case, TUSD leadership has failed to provide critical information in a timely manner to the public and to the governing board. Monday night, the day before the board meeting, no documents had been posted for the presentations on, number 1, item 7.2, budget study session number 6 on salary and compensation and retention stipends. And there's still no information posted. This is a critically important study action item the board may be asked to approve today without input from the public. Number 2, item 8.1, summer programming update. It is critically important for parents and students to know what TUSD intends to do to help students who have fallen behind and missed out academically as a result of problems with online instruction. TUSD didn't bother to post the presentation until this morning, making it unlikely families and their students could comment before TUSD's noon deadline for call to the audience. Shame on TUSD. Number 1, furthermore, TUSD is limiting discussion of agenda items by board members to 20 minutes, regardless of whether or not all the information was provided in time. Number 2, in the past, the board and the superintendent had agreed that documents and presentations were to be posted on Thursdays to give board members time to read and prepare for the Tuesday board meetings. This is being ignored, and now TUSD is limiting board discussions regardless of whether staff provided information in time to board members. Lillian Fox.
Alicia Lara.
Dear Superintendent Trujillo, Board President Counts, Board Clerk Shaw, and distinguished board members Grijalva, Griveau-Shaw, and Luna Rose. I am a Spanish teacher at University High School, and I'm writing this call to the audience to address some budget concerns that I have for the upcoming school year. Firstly, with the federal monies being allotted to our district, I would like to request that you look at lowering class sizes. This has been a stressful school year for many reasons, but for me personally, I have had the added responsibility of teaching a total number of students way above the consensus cap this year. This reflects directly on my quality of teaching and the quality of education that students receive. In addition, with no guarantees for the state of the pandemic in August, it is damaging to our students' education and well-being to try to put as many as 38 students in a classroom. This year, my biggest class was 40. If we would like education to improve in our district, we need to allow for teachers to create a climate conducive to learning and not with the sole purpose of fitting as many students as we can in a classroom to benefit the district's pocketbook. In my experience, students can receive more individual attention and quality instruction if there are 30 or less in a classroom. In addition, we have AP classes with over 30 students this year. I believe that advanced level courses such as AP should have a smaller cap as it is more labor intensive to teach those courses and students need more individualized instruction. One suggestion I have is to look at some of the administrative positions, particularly teacher mentors. I have felt for a long time that teacher mentors would be more effective if they taught a course or two at the school they mentor at so they can be more familiar with the environment. I personally know that some teachers gravitate toward those positions because they are burnt out and want to get out of the stress of the classroom. If I were a new teacher, I would want my mentor to be someone who is aware of the current state of the classroom. We could also lower class sizes by creating a few sections of courses for the teacher mentors from subject areas that might not have enough numbers for a full-time position but are in need of a part-time coverage. Perhaps there are other administrative positions that could be reevaluated as well. Teachers are the frontline workers in our schools, and if parents want their children to have a quality education, then we need to look at the issues I mentioned above. Thank you for reading this and considering my suggestions. Sincerely, Alicia Lara.
Thank you, and that was the last call to the audience letter.
Thank you, Clerk Shaw. Dr. Trujillo, would you like to address the community first?
Yes, I want to take an opportunity to address attachments and presentations. Our policy doesn't require that any particular agenda item actually has a presentation, but when we do have attachments, absolutely, we make commitments to get them up at least 72 hours before the agenda item is discussed. There are some extraordinary situations, like I mentioned in the superintendent's report, where salary and compensation is squarely in the board's purview. Per statute, the board has a right to review proposals inside of executive session before information is presented publicly. And of course, part of honoring labor and honoring the negotiations process is also honoring the concept of going slow to go fast. And so, what that means is taking our time, collaborating, not necessarily rushing the process. Sometimes those negotiations discussions take a little bit longer to get folks feeling a little bit better about the recommendations. And in this particular situation, we came into Tuesday, so we stand by our decision to honor the governing board's right to review salary information and exec. And absolutely, tonight as the item is discussed publicly, we will post it immediately.
Ms. Counts,
Yes,
I apologize.
Michelle.
We have one more letter
okay.
to the audience from Guadalupe Heininger. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Trujillo, President Counts, Clerk Shaw, Legal Counsel, and board members. Thanks to all in TUSD for your hard work. My heart goes out to all of you on these difficult times. The federal government is taking a comprehensive to fix this pandemic. Many say they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I agree, but at the state level, they continue to do this insanity of opening too soon and closing too late. They continue to do this insanity, like, say, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. For the sake of teachers, staff, and students, we need to continue to try to minimize the spread to protect the vulnerable in our greatest generations, and not to overwhelm the hospitals, doctors, nurses, and healthcare providers. Thank you.
And that was it.
Okay. Board members, any questions, comments? Okay.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I would like us to review the matter put forth by Alicia Lara about making sure we have low class sizes, putting a cap on class sizes.
Dr. Trujillo, that's going to be part of a future agenda item?
Yes, that will be, that can be a board member recommendation for consideration during the budget when we bring forward the proposed budget. I can work individually with Ms. Shaw to put together a proposal.
Yeah, and it's discussion that's happening with all of us behind
Correct.
the scenes, right? Okay. Any other comments, Ms. Shaw? No?
Oh, I would also like us to look into revoking the whole time limit on board discussions and presentation.
Okay. And this is to Betts Putnam Hidalgo. We had discussed the time limits and other board member decorum and protocols and practices at the first March meeting. So you can go back and observe that lengthy discussion. All right. Not hearing anything else. We have the consent agenda next. Dr. Trujillo?
Yes, President Counts, before I formally present the consent agenda item, I'd like to request that we move item 5.6 off of consent. and have a separate vote.
Okay, any objections? All right, unanimous consent.
And with that, I would like to present for the governing board's approval the consent agenda item as arranged, the remaining items 5.2 through 5.15, of course, with the movement of 5.6 off of that list.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay, Ms. Luna Rose moves, and I'll second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes unanimously. Dr. Trujillo, item 6.1, administrative appointments.
Or actually, we want to go to do 5.6.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
so the board can consider.
I thought you were moving it off for tonight, but and bringing it back for another agenda.
We can do either or
Okay,
at the discretion of the governing board.
okay. That was my understanding. Were we going to, Rob, how do I organize this for who?
Ms. Counts, you have the agenda item moved off the consent agenda, so the board is free to either discuss it or to move it to another meeting if it wishes.
Okay.
Ms. Count?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva.
Yeah, that wasn't my understanding. I thought that we wanted to have a vote separate from the consent.
Okay,
But I thought we were going to vote on the item.
okay. Board members, is that your understanding?
That was my understanding as well.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead then, Dr. Trujillo, item 5.6.
Item 5.6.
Oh,
Can I move the item?
yes, and I'll second.
Thanks.
Okay, item 5.6, we will move to Mr. Bryant Nodine, who will brief the governing board on this request. Calvary Christian Fellowship and some lease adjustments for their usage of the former Lyons Elementary. Mr. Nodine?
The Calvary Christian Church has been in Lyons for since 2016, and originally they were paying rent, but they ran into some problems in the last year and a half with COVID and a declining parishionership, their congregation. They're down to 6 members now. So they've asked us to extend the lease, which actually expired actually in March. They've asked us to extend it and give them some free rent until the end of June, and then they would pay a reduced rent of $500 a month. Some of the positives are that they have been maintaining the facility. They've been paying for all of the utilities. They've been a presence in the facility, which has helped to stop vandalism. And when there has been vandalism, they have repaired it. They end up paying, as I said, all of the utilities, which is about $2,500 a month. And they are also in the process of folding in another church to increase their membership, which should help them be able to pay their rent in the future. And they've looked at, and any part of the facility that is their premises now, they have been repairing damage and taking care of graffiti. They've also put the equivalent of about $15,000 worth of repairs into the facility with paint, roofing, and we're working with them to maintain the HVAC systems.
Thank you, Mr. Nodine. Board members?
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Mr. Nodine, can you I understand that Calvary Christian Fellowship have not been paying rent. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I'm wondering if we're setting a precedence for community groups to use some of our vacant buildings, and if that's so, I understand that moving forward we will be granting them a pretty affordable monthly rent charge. And so I just wonder if we can perhaps look into doing that same thing for other community groups in the city with some of our other vacant properties. Because as you said, having someone in those facilities will keep down some maintenance charges or vandalism that tends to happen with vacant properties.
Well, that would be a board decision on any that we currently are leasing. My recommendation would be to work with any tenant to try to keep them in the facility, to kind of protect the facility, and work a financial arrangement with them so that they are viable in the facility, so that they basically can make it. And that means pushing as hard as we can to get as much of the rent due as we can, to get as close to a market rate as we can, but not forcing a tenant out if we feel the facility is in danger of vandalism.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva?
Mr. Nodine, do you recall how much it costs to shutter a school?
I don't really remember the cost. Something comes to mind at about close to $25,000 by the time you do all of the things that have to be done, closing down the systems, boarding up the windows, and so on.
And moving out the property. The only reason I bring this up is I think this is a short-term solution. If the Calvary can't increase their rent, I think over a reasonable amount of time, perhaps we open up the option for Lions for other community groups to look at some property. I know property is, especially some of the industrial property, like, business properties and for nonprofits, it's pretty scarce out there right now. And so I do think that the funding that we obtain from rental properties helps us to support some of the other initiatives and support, when things go down, like the HVAC unit that we're still responsible for. I know that none of the board members were here when we closed schools initially, but the shuttering of the school is really difficult for neighborhoods. And it also, people still get into the property and still cause damage, and there's nobody there. And so while I can appreciate that no rent and very little rent is it's a hard pill to swallow when, we do have other nonprofit organizations that are renting from us at other locations. And I'm not opposed to looking at the compensation that we're receiving from those properties to make sure that we're covering our costs. But I'm not opposed to having another group look at Lions. I just don't want us to be in the position where we don't have anybody there, because I do think that the detrimental effects of our facilities being empty, we're going to end up spending a lot more money trying to get the property back to where it is now in the long run.
Okay, any other questions, board members? All right, Michelle, can we please do a roll call vote?
Ms. Grijalva?
Yes.
Dr. Givosha?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Counts?
Yes. All right, item passes. And Ms. Gutierrez, did you need us to vote online with board docs? I know I didn't do it for the consent agenda.
I just changed 5.6 to an action item from consent.
Okay.
And
We all
I just
vote?
opened up online for voting for 5.6.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Moving right along, we are on item 7.1, budget study session. Correct? Wait, where? I'm sorry. I'm jumping way ahead. Item 6.1, administrative appointments for interim assistant superintendent for Region 2. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, board president counts, governing board members. So tonight we have a recommendation for an interim assistant superintendent for Region 2. I would like to take this opportunity to wish Mr. Alvarez, who's our incumbent regional assistant superintendent for Region 2, all the best to him and his family as they navigate a very difficult health situation. Our thoughts and best wishes are with the Alvarez family at this time, and we look forward to welcoming Mark back when the time is right, when he's ready. But in the interim, we have a leadership vacancy that we would like to recommend this evening be filled by a longtime and very, very highly regarded and respected TUSD leader, Mrs. Catherine Comstock. Kathy Comstock most recently served as the principal of Rincon High School from 2011 to 2016. But here is something unique about Kathy. She is one of those rare finds that's been a principal at all three levels, elementary, middle, and high, and she did it all in the Tucson Unified School District. So she has an absolutely amazing lens. She's wonderful with relationships. She knows countless people around the district at all levels, and I'm very proud to recommend her this evening to fill the leadership void as the interim assistant superintendent for Region 2.
All right, I'll move Ms. Comstock.
Second.
Second by Dr. Ravi. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Great, congratulations, Ms. Comstock.
Thank you, Ms. Comstock.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to serve TUSD again, and I appreciate this opportunity to work with our schools during this time, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for stepping up.
Yes.
Item 6.2, Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, item 6.2, kind of bittersweet, as I want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Jeffrey Coleman for all of his years of service as the director for school safety. He will be retiring, and this is after a very, very decorated career as a detective in the Tucson Police Department, and then a very long and distinguished career as our director for school safety, keeping our schools and our district safe. I want to wish him well in his future endeavors, and hope that he sticks around and checks in with us from time to time. In the meantime, to take us home for the remainder of the school year, I have every confidence in tonight's recommendation. Mr. David Vilducea started his career in TUSD in 1996 as a security agent and a dispatcher, and has steadily moved up in the ranks and has held a variety of positions inside of school safety. Of note, security manager, after which he was promoted in 2002 to officer, and then later to captain, and now holds the rank of deputy chief. He is the second in command to Mr. Coleman, and has my every confidence that he can step in and provide consistency, stability, and continuity and leadership for the remainder of the year. Tonight's recommendation, Mr. David Vilducea.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Ms. Luna Rose.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva?
Yes, Dr. Trujillo, just to confirm, this is an interim appointment until there's a whole process for interviewing?
That is correct. This is an interim placement, and all interim positions, should a permanent vacancy arise, then if the interim candidate wishes to apply for the permanent vacancy, they're expected to go through the interview and selection process. Absolutely.
Okay, well, I just wanted to I also want to take an opportunity to thank Mr. Coleman for all of his service to TUSD, and for coming, and I can't even think of the number of hours he's come and presented information to the board about security initiatives and partnerships. And so I wish him the best of luck on his retirement. And I tell this to everybody that's retiring from TUSD: if you don't want to come back to work, then don't answer the phone, because you'll probably get a call.
He's giving a big thumbs up. Thank you, Mr. Coleman, for all your dedication to TUSD over these years. it's been a pleasure working for you. You've always been very forthright and clear and given a lot to the board, and thank you for your work. And with that, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, congratulations to our new interim director of school safety. Are you here? There you are.
I am.
Dr. Trujillo, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I want to welcome David to the team. I want to congratulate David, and like I said, David has the team's full confidence that he's going to be able to step in and provide that continuity and leadership. So I'd like to invite David to say a few words. He is a Tucson native.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to continue serving the Tucson Unified School District. I am definitely a Tucson native. Grew up at the Midvale Farms back in the day, and went through the schools. And I thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Trujillo, item 6.3, Director for Exceptional Education.
Yes, tonight we have a recommendation for the, I want to make a distinction. We're going to be classifying this position as a senior director, so I'm going to start addressing it as a senior director, this particular position, Senior Director for Exceptional Education. Tonight's recommendation is probably one of the most knowledgeable specialists and gifted leaders in this area that I've had the pleasure of working with. I'm very proud to recommend her this evening. She has some experience working in the Arizona Department of Education, where she served as a program specialist. We were fortunate enough to pick her up at TUSD in 2016, where for 3 years she served as an assistant director for ExEd, learning all the ins and outs and the logistical pieces and the relationships of one of the district's largest divisions. She then transitioned over to Mary Meredith and provided us some great support as the principal of Meredith before stepping in July of 2020 as the interim exceptional education leader. She has done an outstanding job in the interim role, and tonight I'd like to recommend Dr. Sabrina Salmon as our new Senior Director for Exceptional Education.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. I'll move.
I'll second.
Ms. Grijalva seconds. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Congratulations, Ms. Salmon. Are you here with us?
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm super excited to have the honor and privilege of serving in this role and supporting our exceptional education department, and I'm just looking forward to what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. Dr. Trio, item 6.4.
Item 6.4, President Counts Governing Board Members. I'd like to turn it over to our Director for Employee Relations, who will, and also our Human Resources, our Director for Human Resources, Renee Heuser, to address any questions related to 6.4. We are formally bringing forward for your consideration approval of the contracts for all of the bargaining unit members that are covered under the Educational Leaders Incorporated, otherwise known as ELI Consensus Agreement. We are talking about our principals, assistant principals, research project managers, and psychologists. And with that, I'll turn it over. I think Renee Heuser, you're going to take lead on this.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. President Counts, members of the board, the list you see attached to our item tonight represents the employees that Dr. Trujillo had just mentioned. This is our assistant principals, psychologists, and research project managers, and our desire to bring them back to their positions for the 1921-22 school year. Thank you very much.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva?
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
All right, that was moved by Ms. Grijalva and seconded by Ms. Luna Rose. Board member questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That would be me. I'll oppose. And it's just, the reason why I'm voting no is just I really want to transition our folks that are on Eli contracts back into the district.
Miss Counts?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva.
Yeah, I think it's ESI that you're talking about.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yes.
Eli is the negotiating group for the administrators.
Right, I was misreading. So I voted yes, and that vote stands on board docs. Thank you, Ms. Grijalva. Okay. Item 7.1, budget study session.
Yes, President Counts, members of the governing board, just to talk a little bit about structure of this particular item, and then I'll introduce the item and turn it over to the team. So the way that this item is going to work, we're going to have mini presentations in each area that encapsulate our capital funding proposals for visual and performance arts, for interscholastic athletics and pre-K programs. At the conclusion of each presentation, we'll break for governing board questions and inquiries because they're going to be unique to each particular area: interscholastic, music, visual arts, and pre-K. And structurally, it would be hard to sit through all three presentations back to back to back and then have to bounce back and forth between sports and music and early childhood ed. So we're going to go one by one, and then we're going to do a governing board discussion, questions, and then move to the second presentation, follow the same format, and then round out with early childhood education support. So just a little note about structure. And on to this item. This is a very, very special item. This is has always been the white whale, if you will, something I've personally chased since standing on the stage of Catalina High School as a candidate for the superintendency here in this district. My big dream and my big goal for our incoming administration was to put the music back into the schools and to finally position the arts and interscholastics and early childhood education as premier programs here in TUSD. And part of being able to do that has always been the struggle of trying to adequately fund them and trying to address their capital needs and to try to create spaces and places where kids can perform and play and be safe and get a start to their early childhood career here in this district. And tonight we're going to be in a position to do that. So what I'd like to address before we get started is, how are we here? After years of struggling with the district's capital coffers and budget due to unprecedented budget slashing at the Arizona State Legislature over an almost 10-year period, this year, with the influx of federal dollars coming through the ESSER fund, and specifically our receipt of ESSER funds through the first round of the CARES Act passage, which saw the district receive around $18.5 million, and then the award of $76.2 million through the second round of CARES Act funding, which brought an additional $76.2 million into the district. These dollars and the parameters that are attached to these dollars have allowed for operational expenses in the areas of transportation, HVAC maintenance and upgrade, instructional technology and infrastructure to largely be taken care of. And these are areas that are typically that chew up our capital dollars, along with custodial supplies. And so these areas that are normally very, very expensive and chew up our capital dollars, these areas have been funded by these ESSER dollars, which has resulted in an available surplus, not that there ever is any surplus, but an available amount of capital funding in our maintenance and operations budget to the tune of $12.5, almost $13 million. This is an unprecedented opportunity to take care of these programs that have historically not been prioritized adequately in this district going back many years. We have put our hopes and dreams on winning bond measures to try to get students instruments and get athletes equipment and adequately resource our pre-K playgrounds and furniture needs in these programs. And I just don't think we can wait anymore. If we're going to be that premier district, this is an investment in the future. This is an investment in our students' opportunities to chase the activities and the programs that connect them so vibrantly to school. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our team, and we're going to lead off with the arts. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Joan Ashcraft, who will start us on our presentation with the arts. Then we'll go ahead and break for governing board questions, comments, or any further requests, and then we'll move into interscholastics with our district athletic director, Desire Wheeler, and our assistant superintendent, Mr. Lambert, and finish out with early childhood education. With that, Dr. Ashcraft, the floor is yours.
Dr. Trujillo, I think Dr. Ashcraft got disconnected, so she is trying to connect right now.
Do we have word on Dr. Ashcraft or not yet? If not, I will go ahead and get us started. So, as we all know, the Tucson Unified School District is home to one of the most vibrant arts programs in the state. It is one of the most popular programs and one of the most iconic, from our opening minds through the arts programs to some of our marquee performance arts programs, to name a few. Mariachi Aslan, we have Mariachi Rayos over at Tucson High, Aslan over at Pueblo. We have the Steel Drum Band over at Tucson High. There is a number of marquee programs that are alive and well in this district that are amazing for our brand and opportunities for kids. Can we go to the next slide, please, Jean? But we have some issues, as you can see on your screen. The recommended lifespan for the predominant majority of instruments in our band and orchestra programs are 20 years. We have some instruments that are as old as 1966 that have not been replaced. You can take a look on your screen. These are actual photos of instruments that are currently in use, because we have never set aside the funding necessary to do a comprehensive replacement of these instruments. Some common challenges that our instruments face: plastic fatigue. You'll see a perfect example up there in the in the left-hand corner of the screen. On the brass instrument, there's a perfect example of plastic fatigue. You see brass rot also evident on that instrument. And then, of course, you can see the wood separation that afflicts the guitar there at the bottom of the screen. These are common problems that occur throughout the district in any number of our orchestra and band programs. Next slide.
Dr. Trujillo, Dr. Ashcraft is now with us.
Dr. Ashcraft, I will let you take over. I've just if you want to speak to the first slide and add any additional information. I spoke to the board and the public about the challenges that our instruments face with their age and having to go through brass rot and wood separation. And we're just getting ready to start the second slide.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you.
Okay. I don't know. Every time I'm supposed to do a board presentation, I get cut off. I'm so sorry for this. I'd just like to say I'm very grateful for this opportunity to address the school board. Thank you, President Counts, school board members, Dr. Trujillo, and legal counsel Ross, for this opportunity. I'm very proud of our staff. I think they've done amazing work and brought much prestige to our district. And also, there's an example of their wonderful work, their student work, in the boardroom there, the Sabino High School visual arts exhibit that will be changed out with other schools in the future. So I just wanted to make note of that. Going on to the instrument replacement, what you're seeing now is the elementary instrument replacement list of recorders for the primary grade children. And the orchestra instruments, we start violin really in 4th grade and move up into 5th grade with orchestra instruments. Band, of course, we start in 5th grade. This slide also talks about the mariachi instruments, the uniforms that we are adding to this. The uniforms for high school band, orchestra, and choir are currently in the budget. Is a 9-year recycle or cycle process. What I'd like to point out to you are the clarinet pieces that you're seeing there. They have been affected. They're 20 years of age. Those instruments that were purchased in basically 1999 2000 rather, and they have plastic fatigue, where the joints no longer stay together. Many instruments have been played by, as many as 6 to 8 children a year. Of course, now with COVID, we have to change that and have to limit them to 1 instrument per child. The picture there to the right with the green on the pads, that's what happens with mold when mold gets into with the moisture in the instruments. And the bottom picture that you see there of the cello that's come apart, that is warping, of course, or what they call wood explosion. And so our repair people try to put those instruments back together, but as you know, wood is usually flat and they have to curve it, so it's a very delicate process. And every time we have to do repairs like that, it lowers the ability to play the instrument with facility because of the way the strings are set up, and also the tone quality is not very, very good. That estimate for the elementary repair is $2,116,000. You can see that number there. We've also listed the number of students that played in 4th grade and 5th grade in our last full in-person schooling. Next slide, please. Middle school instrument replacement, a similar process. I'll let you look at those numbers as we figure them out with a total there at the bottom, the middle school piece of $398,000. Here are some more examples of instruments that have been damaged and just stretched so much to capacity, with the violinist's neck coming loose and the parts coming apart, and what a violin should really look like. And the bottom, of course, is a French horn. And basically what's happened there is the metal is just disintegrating from overuse and for the ability to really facilitate the instrument. That is not malicious damage that you're seeing with that instrument. Next slide, please. High schools, same sort of format for you. In this case, I'd like to share with you the string bass that's being put together by instrumental repair technicians, where they're trying to fit the wood. It's like a big puzzle, basically, and they're gluing it and clamping it together to make it available for students to play. Now, the tuba on the bottom is very interesting. 20 years ago, actually, we purchased 6 tubas from the University of Arizona Marching Band, who had, those instruments had been used for 20 years by the marching band at the university, and yet they had some life left in them, so we've been able to use them for 20 years. If you look carefully, you can see there's tarnishing on the instrument, and around the piping there, you can see where the tarnishing is affecting there, and it's just corroding and wearing away. So the high school total for replacement would be $562,000. Next slide, please. This is our team. You've met these people before. Sean to the left, Dr. Bloomfield in the middle, Joel to the right. Every single one of them has a TUSD connection. They've either graduated from the school, they have current children in the school, or grandchildren. Believe it or not, these men have saved us $90,000 a year with their talents repairing the instruments in-house without having to send them out. Next slide, please. We also put a proposal together for the visual arts. We were amazed to learn that the schools cannot usually provide money for them. Some schools provide $0, while other schools provide $500 to $1,000. But we did an estimate of what really the needs are for elementary. We estimated that at $1,000 for 51 schools. And the middle schools, you'll see we did $2,500. There are 26 middle school K-8 visual arts teachers, and high school 5,000 with 27 teachers. Now, the reason for this increase, there are kits that we'd like to set up for the elementary and the middle school. Of course, with the middle school, those kits get much more complicated than the elementary ones. And then for high school, we need specific equipment that those visual arts teachers need. Some of them may need new kilns. Some of them may need presses and maybe a new pottery wheel, things like that. That estimated cost was provided to us by our research and by specific people, Laura Namerl and Hillary Douglas, that helped us put that together. Next page, please. This is our education expansion piece. We believe that with the reassignment of our staff, our current staff, plus 14 additional FTEs, all of our elementary schools will have a full-time music or visual arts instructional specialists for next year. Currently, we have 26 elementary schools without full-time music and 29 elementary schools without full-time visual arts people. That is our proposal for the expansion in the fine arts FTEs. Next slide. Choral music, again, the same kind of process we follow with the visual arts here in terms of elementary, middle school, and high school. The big issue, of course, is not to Xerox music. That is a huge piece for us. We want to make sure we don't violate copyright law. And we're asking for the high school libraries do need to be refitted with proper music for them, more contemporary, up-to-date music that would be appealing to the students. Thank you. Next slide, please. Dance. We have 18 dance teachers in middle school and high school, and we do teach it with the elementary OMA program. Their request is for software, music, computers, and you can see that list goes on. We're recommending $2,500 for the 18 dance teachers. Next slide, please. This is for the music, the theater arts middle school and high school program. We thank Art Almquist and Chris Kissel for their assistance with this. $5,000 for 18 theater arts teachers that need video cameras, projector screens, microphones, and etc. We also have the fees for the performance rentals or royalties that come into play here. Next slide, please. The next two pages are simply, by the way, I do not know if that sound is coming across to all of you. I have a big rushing of sound here. But this is sort of a accumulation of our instrumental replacement costs by elementary, middle school, and high school. And you'll see the total cost there at the bottom. And if you'll go to the next page, please. This is our expansion project for each of the discipline areas of the arts, their total cost, as well as the expansion of the FTEs to give us the full-time effect, shall we say, at all the elementary schools. By the way, we have already accomplished this with our middle schools. We're very proud of that, thanks to Dr. Trujillo's support. So the grand total with all of that, the instrument replacement and the expansion program, totals $4,465,435. We also recommend over here in little red box that in the future the arts programs are supported by the school, some additional costs for elementary, middle school K-8s, and high school, the amount of money in order for them to really be very exceptionally fine in what they're able to present to the children. Next slide, please. With the research we've done for the last 20 years with WestEd, the federal government, Harvard University, Edutopia, and the University of Arizona, we have witnessed academic, social, emotional, artistic growth and improved discipline and attendance in our schools. We know that the arts are a catalyst for retaining and recruiting students for this district. We recognize the arts as the synthesis for all learning on which our future depends. I thank you for your attention and commitment to the arts for the children we also dearly love.
Thank you, Dr. Ashcraft, and I want to thank all of the performance arts teachers that gave feedback. I know Mr. Kissel and Mr. Almquist very well, and I very much enjoy both of the productions at their respective theater arts programs out there at Sabino and Tucson High. So I'm very happy to bring this proposal forward. And at this time, President Counts, we'll throw it over to the board members for questions, comments, inquiries.
I have a... hold on.
Dr. Ashcraft, if we could have...
I'm sorry, mute myself?
Yeah, let's see if that takes care of the sound. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I have a question, Dr. Trujillo.
Yes.
Ms. Ashcraft, thank you so much for your presentation.
Sorry.
Is it safe?
Wrong button.
Okay. It's like a bad movie. Okay. So, not really a question, but more like a comment. I'm a huge supporter of OMA. My daughter went to Sewell. We were I was on the site council and booster club, and we were constantly fundraising for the program, and we fundraised for recorders, we did for new equipment, and so I'm really pleased to see this. My question is, though, I guess maybe this is more Dr. Trujillo, is any of this from CARES Act?
Board Member Luna Rose, no, this is resulting from the district's capital budget. As I mentioned at the top of the item, the district does have an excess surplus of the normal amount of capital monies that we carry over year to year is anywhere from $4 to $6 million. This year we're carrying forward almost $13 million. Okay. And that is as a result of CARES Act monies and ESSER funds coming into the district and funding operational areas that usually eat up our capital dollars, like transportation, information technology, devices, infrastructure, custodial, sanitation supplies costs, all of that being handled now by a lot of the ESSER money, also a lot of the HVAC upgrades going on, has made this money available that's in your normal capital budget.
Okay. And I also think it would be a boon. I mean, I know Mr. Contreras over at Pueblo just received an award, and having nice shining uniforms for all our mariachi groups and across the district, again, I think is, I love this, so that's all I'm going to say. And thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ravi.
I have a couple of questions, but before I have my questions, I just want to make a couple of comments first. It's nights like these that really warm my heart. This is the reason why we all wanted to run for office and serve on the board, is to have nights like these where we can really figure out how to put resources of our district into programs that we know are going to make such a positive impact in the lives of our students throughout our district. I still have my 4th grade recorder. It's more than 20 years old, so it's definitely outlived its average lifespan. But I've done duets with my daughter with her recorder, over the last year. As she's in OMA, has a recorder in 3rd grade, and then just recently in my Facebook feed, the memory came up from 2 years ago when she was dressed in I think she was a clam or something, in her underwater opera that her then 1st grade class at Lineweaver had, and I was able to see that in person. So this is really an amazing opportunity to really do something that's good for students throughout the district. And as I think Dr. Ashcroft said, we know we have so much evidence that exposure to fine arts and music and all these things that we're trying to do for our students makes such a huge impact on so many other factors of academic achievement and social emotional learning, and this is such an important thing to do and all around. My questions, Dr. Trujillo, of course, are budget related. So if we're moving, money that we didn't have to spend because we found other sources of funding for a lot of our normal expenses this year to pay for this, what are we committing ourselves to for future years? Are we committing ourselves to, my quick calculation, $940,000 or $20-something thousand for the fine arts expansion, for future years to come out of M&O then, or what is our plan? So I know we have funding this year to pay for this out of the capital funds. But and that's going to take care of all the instruments and everything, which is a one-time cost mostly, and will help save us money with some of the repairs that were mentioned earlier. But for the fine arts expansions, are we committing ourselves to the almost $1 million on an annual basis to keep this going?
No, that's a good point, Dr. Graboy-Shaw. So the only aspect of this plan that's coming from another funding source is the addition of the 14 arts educators, the music and the visual arts educators. We fund the predominant majority of all music and arts educators from the Classroom Site Fund, which is not in your M&O budget. It is an approved expenditure from statute for Proposition 301 monies coming out of the Classroom Site Fund. And due to the excess sales tax that we have seen this year, or the excess in revenue from the sales tax, school districts across the state of Arizona received substantial increases in classroom site funds. And with our increase, we wanted to invest a small slice of it, definitely not the whole of it, into the arts, and specifically expanding these positions. This portion of it does not come from capital.
No, I understand it for this year, but for the 22-23 year, for example, to maintain this, are we then going to be looking into our M&O budget and other things to pay for this in future years? Which is fine if we do. I think it's worth it. So that's the plan right now.
That is the plan. Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Gravoy-Shaw, I will proudly say that with the administration's proposal here, it forces it into a recurring cost, which forces any future board or superintendent to really examine their values and their beliefs about the arts and the importance of arts in the budget. And it's a nice way to memorialize our commitment and put it in as a recurring expense.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva, and then Ms. Shaw.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I think that it was really helpful and the breakdown was really helpful. I know that just because I'm more familiar with some of the mariachi programs, I know that their instruments are also in some need of some recharge, especially in our elementary levels. And so when we were looking at the fine arts equipment infusion, and then we had mariachi separate, is that mariachi line separate for the trajes, or is that including everything with instruments?
Dr. Trujillo, may I answer that, please?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Ashcroft.
Okay, yes, the uniforms, the trajes, are separate from the instruments. And we have a good understanding of what is needed in terms of the vihuelas, the guitarrons, and the other instruments that support. Of course, you know, the violins and some of those other instruments that are traditional, the trumpets, we can cover with our general budget, but we have specific line items for the specialized instruments.
Okay, thank you. And then I just, I agree with Dr. Ravi. It is one of those nights where you're like, we're going to be able to see the effects of this vote tonight throughout our kids' schools, all of their friends, and so I'm really excited about that. I do know that some funding line items are already funded in magnet programs, so this doesn't supplant that, right? It's a supplement to what we're already doing.
That is correct.
Okay, and then I do think that it would allow us to get creative for some other arts programs. I know that, we have steel drums at Tucson High, but we don't have really as many drum programs and others in some of the younger grades. And so I'd love to see a more diverse offering of different musical styles and instruments. And so I'm glad to see this, because this will cover what we currently have and then perhaps generate an opportunity for school sites to create some other opportunities.
Ms. Grijalva, in actuality, we've done exactly that. We've started the drum programs in some of our middle schools, and it's increased enrollment in music, and Doolin comes to mind immediately. So thank you for that. I think we will be seeing more of the percussion instruments coming into play in the future.
Great. And then, the native flute, I know that that is a program that, I would love to see in more schools. And that was a grant program that was funded, that funded that program. So I would just love to see more expansion. And I think that if our music teachers don't have to be so preoccupied with replacing and fundraising for some of these activities, that it would give them an opportunity to get really creative. So thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Ms. Counts, and thank you, Dr. Ashcraft, for presenting this package. As an artist and an art educator, I know how important it is to have full-time art program in all levels, and I'm so excited to see that we're finally making sure that at the elementary school level that students receive both art and music. And so, I wanted to speak on a few of the things that I saw in the presentation. One, I just want the public to know that at the beginning of the presentation, we talked about the recorders. And so that, correct me, Dr. Trujillo, if I'm misspeaking on that, but my understanding that every elementary school student in TUSD is going to be given a recorder to take home with them, and it will be theirs, or?
Yes, that's correct. We are funding the recorders, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Ashcraft, did we go K5 on that? K3?
We went to K3 on that because instrumental music, the violins start in 4th grade.
Because of the focus on violin at 4th, we went K3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and then band, of course, beginning in 5th grade.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's regarded as a pre-band, pre-orchestra instrument.
Right, but they will still be given that instrument then?
Yes, that is correct, K through 3.
Okay, and that will continue for, new coming kindergartners will be given a recorder as well.
Yes, and we tried to order those this year, but we didn't have enough time to get them before the end of the year. So yes, we're on top of that now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think, the recorder, as Dr. Ravi said, is really important in getting kids interested in music and potentially going into orchestra or band and getting an understanding of music theory at an early age. But I also want to speak to the presentation on page 8. It lists that there's 26 elementary schools without full-time music and 29 without a full-time visual arts teacher. And it looks like we're going to be hiring 14 and some staff will be reassigned. Can you go into detail more about how, with 14 new hires, how that's going to cover the need with almost 30 schools that lack art education?
Ms. Shaw and Governing Board, actually we have, as you know, a rather large staff right now that are assigned to multiple schools. So as I mentioned briefly in my presentation, we will be looking at reassigning all of the staff so that we're sure to have a full-time person in each of the schools. So it's not just these 14 people, but everybody that's involved in the fine arts staff under the fine arts department. And I'll be able to, once you move forward on this, I will be able to actually give you the names of people who will be in each school.
Okay, so are these art teachers going to be floating from one school to another, or will each student?
No, what Dr. Trujillo and I discussed is for them to be full-time in one school. And then we also discussed the possibility of one semester of the performing arts and then the second semester of the visual arts, so that a person might have 2 schools serving one school in the fall and a different school in the spring, so that all children had a semester of visual arts and a semester of performing arts.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Ashcraft, if you would like to mute again for the noise.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
All right. Well, I just want to say that I am super excited about this item and don't really have much to say that hasn't already been said. I think what I'm most excited about is that we are memorializing this to have long-term impacts. And secondly, I'm excited about the art education expansion with teachers. I know that my current art teacher at Bloom Elementary she's split between multiple schools, and I think it's stressful for her, and it leads to a lot of burnout, and the kids just don't get as much time with her. She's wonderful, and I just think that it's such a huge benefit for everybody and in every school that we're doing this. So, and for the long term, hopefully future boards will appreciate art as much as this current board and administration do, because it is a wonderful tool to reach all children. So if there's not any other questions or comments, Michelle, could we do a roll call vote?
Do we have a motion?
We don't. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was moved.
I'll move.
I'll second.
So that was moved by Dr. Ravi and seconded by Ms. Luna Rose. And then, Michelle, we could do a vote.
Ms. Grijalva?
Yes?
Dr. Gravosa?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, item passes unanimously. Congratulations to all our TUSD kiddos.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is very exciting. Okay. Dr. Trujillo, go ahead.
Yeah, President, Counts, members of the governing board. Equally as important in the lives of our kids are extracurricular activities and an involvement in sports. In our interscholastic programs, TUSD is home to one of the most vibrant interscholastic programs in the entire state. And like the arts, like music education, like visual arts education, sports can make a young person feel at home in an environment that they are unfamiliar or that they feel out of place. Sports can help a shy young person find their place in a campus of 2,000-3,000 students. Sports teaches the virtues of and the values of teamwork and collaboration, will, desire, temperance, spirit, dedication. And just like in the arts, it's been far too long that we have prioritized sports programming for all segments of our student body, boys and girls programs, all sports, from cross country to football to track to volleyball to tennis. And tonight we have an opportunity to do that in recognition of just how important participation in interscholastic sports and relationships with teammates and mentorship of coaches is in this district. So to lead us, I want to throw it over to our district athletic director, Desire Wheeler, who is fresh off of going to the Final Four, not as a player, but as a former U of A alumni who played on a U of A team herself as an undergraduate and was there at the Final Four cheering on her former teammate, Coach Barnes, who still is a close friend of her to this day, and she's here to talk about her recommendations here. And one of the things that I want to compliment Desire Wheeler, our district athletic director, she took the time to walk the district. She walked the facilities, she walked the sports fields, she walked the playing spaces across this district. She took pictures, and as a fresh perspective, as a person coming from outside the district, really put together some compelling images of what are some areas that we're going to be taking some immediate action on through this proposal. So with that, Ms. Wheeler, floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, President, Counts, and board members. And for the new board members, as Dr. Trujillo mentioned, I'm Desire Wheeler, the Director of Interscholastics. First and foremost, I chose this picture because this picture identifies some of the needs and upgrades as I continue through the presentation. This is an actual picture of one of our tennis courts that lies on one of our high school campuses. Next slide. Priority areas and improvements. Schools' athletic restrooms, enhanced maintenance and grounds for fields, school athletic facility improvements, and athletic equipment repairs and replacement are areas in which I want to focus on today during the presentation. Next slide, please. The TUSD athletic facilities, equipment, and essential program needs are currently antiquated and requires attention. The facilities are poorly maintained and in demand of repairs and replacements through funding. I would like to echo in what Dr. Trujillo mentioned. I personally got out and walked the grounds and saw the facilities firsthand. Going over to the images, image 1, top left, is an asphalt track that is worn, and note that there are multiple cracks and craters. The track is now inoperable, and the team cannot practice nor host track meets. Image 2, top right, highlights our grounds of our the conditions of our grounds, which has weeds that have grown into the surface of a track that has a hazardous manhole or maintenance cover that has appeared and flushed onto the track. There's weeds that have not been removed, which need to be removed or replaced. Image 3, bottom left, is of a press box that has rusted, cracked, and needs to be replaced. Each high school is now equipped with a Pixelot live stream camera. However, several of our campuses still remain without that installation because they do not have a press box to do so. Image 4, which is bottom right, is of a girls softball field. This is a fence that actually surrounds a girls softball field. The fence is barely holding up, and the school has done all it could to keep it from falling. Next slide. Our athletic restrooms and locker rooms are also in poor condition. They're damaged without proper ventilation and lighting. Our lockers are outdated and lack doors to secure our athletes' belongings. The lockers with the doors do not close properly. The shower areas have missing tiles, lack of privacy, rusted shower heads, broken toilets and urinals. Most locker rooms are not to be used as intended. Next slide. Equality across participation levels in TUSD. Title IX provisions typically applies when there's gender inequality. However, they also govern the overall equity and treatment of athletes participating in interscholastic sports. Ensuring there is equitable treatment for elementary, middle, and high school athletics, student athletes should receive equal benefits and services from their schools to include quality equipment and supplies, enhanced practice and games through quality facilities such as locker rooms, fields, and gymnasiums. Note that elementary and middle school is the time in which athletes will decide whether or not they want to participate in sports. We want to provide lasting experience to those students, an experience in which our school-age students look forward to competing at the next level within TUSD. And quality programming helps with our student retention. Next slide. This slide here shows our actual high school gymnasiums versus what our middle and elementary school athletes are competing on, what platforms they're competing on. Our high school gymnasiums are enclosed facilities that provide adequate ventilation, seating, and protection from elements. They are multi-use and multi-season options. Opposed to our outdoor courts, in which our elementary and middle school athletes compete on, they are exposed to elements, leaving them without protection. There are no team or spectator bleachers, no ventilation, and they are in poor condition. Again, these are actual images of a TUSD high school and middle and elementary school outdoor court. Next slide. Solutions to remedy middle and elementary school facility challenges: installation of sunshades, repairs and replacement to our outdoor courts and fields for basketball, volleyball, softball, and soccer. The installation of bleachers or seating and fencing, and of course maintain the existing athletic facilities that we have for our elementary and middle school athletics. Next slide. Here I provide visuals of those remedies for elementary and middle schools to support our facility challenges. The installation of sunshades for our outdoor courts help protect athletes from heat-related illness and provide shade which cools down the courts. The installation of bleachers or seatings provides a designated space for not only their participants, but their families who are there to support them. While there are current spaces for our soccer, football, and softball, these images actually reflect when fields are properly maintained, they will enhance the athletes' overall experiences. Through these enhancements and improvements, we can improve high school, middle school, and elementary school facilities. Next slide. It is our desire that every elementary and middle school receive the proper uniforms and equipment that are essential for providing quality programming. We want to provide uniforms per gender, per level for all middle and elementary school students. We want to provide practice and game day equipment per gender and per sport for all elementary school students. Soccer balls, footballs, volleyballs, softball, relay batons, all the essential equipment needs for our students. Not only that, we want to provide each elementary and middle school with a deluxe physical education kit. Next slide. In order to provide the needs for the facilities, equipment, and uniform upgrades, the Interscholastic Department is requesting $650,000 for a new track at Rincon High School, $300,000 for K-12 facility repairs and replacements, $600,000 for K-12 equipment, another $200,000 for elementary and middle school sunshades, $150,000 for elementary and middle school uniforms. We are requesting a total of $1.9 million. For a comprehensive breakdown of this request, I've submitted wish lists from my high school, middle schools, and elementary schools. The wish lists were submitted from each school's athletic administration or their designated point of contact for athletics. Next slide. The Interscholastic Department wishes to extend our appreciation to the board for its support of our efforts to enhance TUSD athletic programs. It is our desire to provide students with quality and safe access to the best possible facilities in Tucson and ensure equality amongst all of our campuses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wheeler. Board members, any comments, questions? Dr. Trujillo, did you have something you wanted to say first?
Yeah, number one, I want to thank all of our hardworking administrators that took the time to really do a really comprehensive needs analysis on their respective campuses. And for the public watching, if you want to get into a really, really minute level of detail, we've actually, as a public attachment, we've listed out every single school in the district and exactly what's going to go into each school. So you'll see down to where the uniforms are going to go, new volleyball nets, new basketballs, new equipment bags. Some of them are bigger picture projects like the track at Rincon. And also the second item of note, I want the governing board to feel confident that this also, a lot of the work around facilities that you saw here tonight, targeting showers, bathrooms, locker rooms, shade structures, surfaces. Those were areas identified in the internal auditor's report as areas of improvement that needed action taken according to her findings. So this is a combination of supporting our athletes, supporting our coaches, and providing them with the equipment that they need to thrive. And then it's also us coming into compliance and taking immediate action on those areas of growth that were identified in that internal audit.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I appreciate it. And I also think that it's so important for us to promote equity across sports. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you go to attend different sporting events that, you know, whether it's boys or girls, whatever the event, you tend to see a different uniform, different kind of equipment, you know, relegated to a different field. And so that is important for us to have that equity. But I also know that we are not as competitive in some sports because there doesn't seem to be as much support district-wide. And so as far as like wrestling, for example, if we have students that are real big wrestlers, they're going to go to another school district because there isn't as much support or opportunities in TUSD. In soccer programs, some of our high schools have some amazing programs and others don't. And so I'm wondering if there is a way for us to list out, as we talk about the different schools, what athletic and music programs. I know some of our websites have that and others don't. But if we can make sure that as people are looking at what schools they're going to put their children in, if we can have that information really readily available, that's very helpful. But also, my children have attended schools that don't have some of the sports offerings that others do. And so I'm wondering how we can, as a district, work to dedicate more resources either to coach stipends or the kind of supports that they need, because some of these programs are, you know, like Carrillo, for example, has a track program Well, that was totally funded by fundraisers and, you know, parents driving children. I mean, we didn't have any central support for that. And so I'm glad to see that we're working towards that. But I just want to throw out a few of the things that have come up for me and, you know, my children and our, you know, their friends as we've been growing up in TUSD. The only other one I would say is I think it's so important for us to look at these improvements like the track field at Rincon and like we're doing with the band uniforms and refreshing to put these facilities on a cycle. So we have an idea of when they're going to be improved upon. Because, you know, I think it's great for Rincon UHS to have a track. And I know that as soon as we say that they're going to have a track, we're going to get calls from other schools saying, hey, but we want one too. Or come look at ours and look at the condition of, you know, this field or whatever. So I think it's really important that you went to every school and assessed, because I think putting eyes on the problem is one of the biggest issues that we have. So I appreciate the presentation and look forward to continued planning on how we can improve upon our facilities and the access for our kids for sports.
Dr. Ravi.
Thank you, President Counts. A couple things to say and, of course, some questions. To build on Ms. Grijalva's comments, I think, you know, one thing we did at my organization is we took like a 20-year capital plan and all the big things. So maybe even if there's a way over time after this is moving forward to really think of a 20-year capital plan of what needs to be replaced in 5 years, what tracks need to be replaced in the future, so we can start planning ahead to keep things from falling apart and to get to this state and really do some kind of slow improvements over time, as Ms. Grijalva said. You know, so when I was on the audit committee, Martha Smith, the internal auditor, she came with this. You know, one of the first audits she did was our athletics and interscholastics programs, and it was really frustrating reading that because I'm like, well, what can we do with all this information? We don't have funds to make all these improvements, and I'm so happy that we're bringing this on the table and really making some of these changes. So I understand for this one, for what we're voting on tonight, this is a one-time use of funds from our unexpended planned expenditures from our budget for this year. I'm a little confused on the wish list and the numbers here and all of the things and the presentation. So things like are we improving all the restrooms and locker rooms, and is that all coming out of just like a $300,000 for facility repairs and replacement? Is that covering like all the locker rooms, you know, bleachers and all the other things that we're trying to do? And I'm a little confused on the wish list because just a quick calculation of the wish list is over $2.5 million, and this is only $1.9 million. So trying to figure out, you know, what we're funding here and what we're doing tonight.
Yeah, those are good questions, Dr. Gavoy-Shaw. The wish list is wish, right? So this is what we wanted to be fully transparent in terms of what the school submitted, and what you saw in our presentation is our final package. It's important to note that the K-12 facility repairs, that's $300,000. There may be other, that's coming from this pot of money that we're apportioning. There may be other funding that could come through a reallocation of desegregation that could be applied towards projects. That certainly requires plaintiff feedback, special master weighing in on that as well. But these are, the big bulk of the repairs are going to be taken up by the new track over there at Rincon. They're probably with an additional, after this item, there's going to be around $6.5 to $7 million capital still unspent. There could be additional projects identified that are multi-purpose use, not only just used by interscholastic sports, but by campuses at large. Like a lot of the work on the fields, a lot of the work on the fencing, a lot of the work on bleachers, that actually can bleed into general capital that serves a school campus as well as these programs.
So it's a follow-up question. So that what we're approving tonight won't actually, so all the pictures that Ms. Wheeler had throughout the presentation, what we're approving tonight take care of improving all of those and taking care of all those, or are we only approving enough to cover some of this, and we'll have to look at other sources of funding to make sure that all the pictures and everything that's found in the internal audit reports gets addressed at some point?
Ms. Wheeler, do you have just a general just list of the immediate projects that are going to be funded by the $300,000?
Yes, but first I also like to note that on the wish list for high schools, that number also includes Rincon's track. So if we remove that $650,000 from that wish list, that also has funds to go towards the other costs. But yes, each school has been tasked to get quotes for immediate needs, such as very first image. I chose that image. I thought it was important. That is an actual tennis court. They're in the process of getting quotes for that. We have quotes for press boxes for all of our schools. So to address your question, those are just estimates that we have right now. A lot of things we look to replace, but the biggest thing right now is let's try to repair what we can. And as you said earlier, was that we want to put together an action plan so we don't get to the point of having to replace. But let's have those repairs, when requested, take place in a timely manner, so we're not looking at replacements in the future.
So my question was so is everything, all the pictures, everything will be repaired from what we're approving tonight? Do we have a list of what we're because with the arts and music program and what we just discussed, we had a very distinct list of what we're approving and what we're funding. Do we have that yet? Or are we more approving here's a budget, and then we're going to go back to the staff and the schools and figure out how to spend that budget later? What are we actually approving tonight?
And so I didn't walk through every school with a fine tooth, but we do have a general consensus that all of our restroom facilities, our weight rooms, our athletic fields, we need to do walkthroughs to each of those stadiums or indoor facilities to assess what we can take care of, and as I previously mentioned, or repair.
So, Ms. Wheeler, to be very, very specific here, this is a $300,000 apportionment, and now it's going in to identify the specific projects that will fit into the $300,000, setting aside $600,000 from the track at Rincon. But the $300,000 is going to take action on the bathrooms and the shower issues that we saw inside of the internal audit report.
Correct, yes.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Luna Rose and then Ms. Shaw.
Okay. I'm sorry, Michelle, did you need to? No? Okay. So my question is, I'm just curious about the track. When was the last time it was replaced? Do we know?
The track is over 20 years old. I'll get the actual date. I can request that for them, but I would like to state that that's an actual quote for the track that was sent over by their athletic administration.
Okay. Hopefully, so obviously, is the work being done, are we contracting that out, or is that being done in-house?
Contracting it out.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Ms. Counts, and thank you, Ms. Wheeler, for the presentation. Some of my question was sort of answered by Dr. Ravi's question, but I was wondering about the wish list for elementary schools, and I guess that is sort of up in the air and just, a wish. But I do want to point out that a lot of elementary schools, I'm not sure the exact number, but some elementary schools don't have a PE teacher. Some don't offer all of the sports listed on the wish list. And so what can we do to move towards getting a PE teacher at every school and maybe implementing some of those sports programs at all schools? Is it going to take a site council to raise money, or how do you propose we move forward with some of those items on the wish list?
The biggest assessment for us is trying to get surveys out to gain the interest of those students. But our department is working hard to provide access to all the students. At the school-based level, I look forward to working with the regionals to see what support can be provided to those schools who have students that now have interest to participate. But as of right now, all students in the district, each school has opportunity to participate in athletics.
So I'll jump in here. The specific question, and I think it's more for me, what's it going to take to put a standalone PE teacher in every single school in the districts, particularly elementary, where you don't have a full-time PE teacher. We would love to do everything at one time, and that's probably the next hill that we're going to be attacking. Like with the music teachers, that's probably going to take a couple of $1 million. We did music first. And music has been a several-year struggle. I know in the 17-18 school year, my budget recommendation to bring back 6 was accepted. That was great. And then over in 18-19, we brought back 4 or 5 more. Then we were stopped cold during that very, very rough 18-19, and the 19-20 was pandemic. So this 14 completes that puzzle of putting back the almost 25 teachers that were riffed out of the district in the early 2010s. Now we've got to start slowly doing that work with PE, and that's going to take several $1 million to be able to do that. But that's work that needs to be done if there's a vision, and there is, for comprehensive sports programming throughout the district. And then my only other comment here is just on this particular public attachment. My preference is that we don't refer to the elementary as wish list, because it's actually just a straight up allocation request. Like, hey, everybody's got this $11,559 to go put to work for equipment, to go get those cones, go get those basketballs, go get those volleyballs. So I think we're going to probably on this particular attachment edit the title of it, because wish denotes that you're not getting it. And I would prefer it that it's more just a straight across allocation.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo and Ms. Wheeler, for answering that question. So, as you say, the wish list for elementary school level, that is something that is going to be allocated to each elementary school. Because I say this because looking at it, a lot of the line items listed are for like uniforms for track or some of the other sports. And so are we giving a chunk of money to elementary schools to do with it what they will in regards to interscholastic funding? Because it looks like every elementary school kind of has the same amount of money allocated to each elementary school. So some elementary schools might have a PE teacher, some might not, some might have track, some might not. And so how are we going to handle that?
Mr. Lambert, I see you piping in. I will say that you only in elementary, really you've only got physical education going on and you've got cross country. And so the uniforms are big. So when you heard Mrs. Grijalva talk about her experience with track and cross country, part of that battle to support those programs is to cover the uniform costs. And that's what we're going to be able to do. I'm usually the gunner that starts the race and the district-wide race that happens every year, pre-COVID, of course. And one of the things that's always broken my heart is to see several, especially K-5 students throughout the district, that they're racing in street clothes, that some of the kids on their team may have a uniform, other kids have street clothes. And so I'm glad we're going to be able to take care of that issue. In middle school, you've got basketball and track and cross country going on for boys and girls, and we're going to be able to take care of those two sports uniform needs. Then you have the $600,000 K-12 equipment that is each individual school's request for immediate items or their apportionment. So with that, I know, Brian, you wanted to add some additional information.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you, governing board members. I just want to clarify, interscholastics is much different than PE. This is going to be the extracurricular, which is like the after-school sports. And I know like we often try to blend them together, but PE is actually during the instructional day. So what we're looking at with these is providing elementary those opportunities for things like cross-country or basketball in hopes that we're sparking that interest. So as they go up into middle school where they have basketball, volleyball, soccer, and track and cross-country, that we continue to grow that so that they're able to move into high school and have a wealth of opportunities.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Lambert. And so because this is like after school type stuff, and I'm looking at the wish list right now, like, you know, each elementary school is says it's going to be allocated like uniforms for softball, basketball, flag football, and if if elementary schools are only participate in track, and some schools don't even have that program, how can me with my daughter at Monzo, who I don't know if she has any of these offered to her, and for those other parents whose schools don't have these offered to their students, how can we get them in these programs? Or are we going to be guaranteed that moving forward, like in the next school year, it's going to be offered at their school? Or how are you going to work that out?
I'll take that one, Brian. Well, I would like to mention that cross country and track is also an individual sport. So although the school does not offer that sport, the student can run as an individual and still represent his or her school. In terms of training, what I would do is work with our coordinators to work with neighboring schools so that the students can still get the training. But again, when competing in sports that are individual sports, again, cross country and track, that they have the opportunity to still represent their school. Does that answer your question, Ms. Shaw?
It does. I'm just wondering, for all of these elementary school wish lists that have uniforms for sports that aren't actually offered at that school, just wondering why that's on the budget.
It is our hope that the interest, that it grows. In the event they have the opportunity to field enough participants to have the team, we want them to be equipped and ready to do so. And so each year, we're willing to reflect that in our schedules to gain schools that want to participate. Again, every school in the district has access to athletics, and although they didn't participate in subsequent years, it's our desire that our participation numbers increase and that more schools will come in each of the sports that's offered at each level.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, board members? All right. So since we divided the item, this is going to be its own agenda item, and which I think is great, makes it celebratory. So I'd like to move.
I'll second.
Ms. Grijalva seconds. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item passes unanimously. Great. Super excited. Thank you so much, Ms. Wheeler, Mr. Lambert.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome day in athletics. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, Dr. Trujillo.
And the last component, the third component here, is a support package for the district's youngest customers, our babies, our early childhood education attendees. We currently have 13 preschool programs throughout the district that do not have adequate playground equipment or shade structures, or those shade structures are so old and dilapidated, they're not safe and they're not optimal for children's usage. So we've identified 13 schools: Banks, Collier, Holiday, Howell, Hudlow, Maldonado, Monzo, Miller, Mission View, Ochoa, Robeson, VC, and Cragen. And we've identified these schools for the purchase and installation of new early childhood education preschool playground structures, along with one recommendation over there at Cragen. We have a kindergarten, and we have a playground that is compatible for usage with kinder students as well as some of the preschool. So we want to make sure that we are adequately outfitting that one playground in that one instance out there at Cragen, so that the kindergartners also have at that particular school access to some new equipment. So you can see this is the playground structures that we've tentatively selected, and the total cost is $480,313 that we're bringing forward as part of this package.
Board members, any questions? Okay, this is wonderful. And Dr. Trujillo, is shade structures shade structures included?
Shade structures are included. So you can see What we're going to be installing on your screen there to the left, I've got my pointer on it. That's a substantial shade structure there for the protection of our kids. That will be also included with the purchase of the actual equipment that you see in the image.
Great. That helps protect the equipment and the little kids.
Absolutely.
I'd like to move the item.
Second.
All right. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Dr. Trujillo. This has, I know, been on the docket for a while, so it's exciting for those kids to have somewhere to run and jump and play and do so safely. Thank you.
New instruments, new uniforms, new band equipment, new sports equipment, work on facilities in the interscholastics, and now new playground equipment for early childhood education. Not a bad night. Thank you, governing board members, for this unprecedented level of support.
It's our pleasure, I'm sure. All right. We are moving on to item 7.2, budget study session, salary and compensation, retention stipends for pandemic era service.
Yes, President counts, governing board members, and I know that we've got a lot of eager viewers out there, our employees, of course, watching in earnest tonight. This item, I'd like to turn it over to Maricela Mesa. And I want to take a moment to thank all of our association leaders from ELI, from CWA, from TEA, from AFSCME that have been so incredibly accessible. They've been very, very responsive at all hours, sometimes having negotiation sessions later on into the evening. And I want to thank all of them for participating in this process. Ms. Mesa?
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Governing board members, we're here to present today on the retention stipends for the pandemic era and also to discuss compensation. We're going to start with Renee Weatherless is going to provide some information regarding as to the ESSER monies, and the goal is to make certain that you have all the information you need to ensure compliance as we move forward with discussions. And then after Renee Weatherless finishes her portion, I'll get into detail regarding the stipends and compensation.
Thank you, Ms. Mesa. President counts, members of the governing board, Dr. Trujillo, Council Ross, and staff. If we go ahead and go to the next slide, we've talked about ESSER, and just for the benefit of the public, I want to make sure that everybody understands that the federal grant for elementary and secondary school emergency relief. So this monies have been noted as being available to prevent, prepare, and respond to COVID-19. So that's pretty broad. However, in the guidance, the one thing that it was stated it cannot do is right there on the screen. It cannot generally pay for bonuses, merit pay, or similar expenditures unless it's related to a disruption caused by COVID-19. So the purpose of this is just to give you an idea of what types of expenditures we can use this funding for. You can see recruitment, retention, compensation for added duty, or even additional pay in the case of there may be some hiring shortages. On the next slide, these are some additional examples. There you go. In addition to compensation or retention stipends, we've talked a lot about air quality, HVAC upgrades, tutoring, summer school for anything that's covering academic loss, mental health support, or to retain existing staff, as we saw at the fourth quarter of last year. So this is just to give a general overview of how these monies can be used, and I will turn it back to Ms. Mesa.
Thank you so much. What I'd like to get into right now are we're proposing to you 3 separate pandemic era stipends. Each of these stipends have their own specific eligibility, considerations, and price tags, and will be paid at different times. So next slide, thank you, perfect. The first stipend that we bring to you, there's going to be 2 for 2020 and 2021. That's the proposal. These stipends would be paid this school year. Hopefully before June. It just depends on if and when the board decides to adopt this action. The first stipend is the Learning Space School Site Stipend. What we want to do with conviction is just recognize and thank the individuals who have been on site during the pandemic, our health assistants, our custodians, our office managers, our principals, our ex-ed hub staff. They have been there. Many of these people did not have the option to work remote as other employees did. So what we're wanting to do is provide them with a one-time payment of $1,000 to be paid, like I said, within the next couple months. We also included substitute teachers and supplemental employees. We created a tiered system as some people just came in, maybe for a couple days, or some people took on long-term sub roles. So we wanted to ensure that these individuals were honored as well with these payments. The estimated price tag for this one is about $3.8 million, and it would be funded out of ESSER. The next stipend is the teacher transition stipend. As we know, the majority of the teachers were worked remotely, and then after the third quarter needed to transition. Even the teachers who stayed working remotely, there was a change for many of them. So we want to honor that by providing a $500 payment to them. This would include long-term subs. Now, if someone was an ex-ed hub teacher who was on site, they would also receive the teacher transition stipend. So our ex-ed hub teachers would receive $1,500. The estimated price tag for this is $1.5 million, and also coming out of ESSER. We wanted to recognize that the transition was not easy, and provide monies to honor that. So these are for the 2020-2021 stipends. I don't know if there are questions specific to this, or if you'd like me to proceed to the next stipend.
Any questions, board members? Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Ms. Counts. Can you just go, it says estimated cost $3.8 million. Is that just for the 1,004 employees who were on site? Because it seems a little high for the amount of employees that we have that were on site that would be getting just 1,000. Doesn't seem like it equals up. Can you explain that?
This is an estimate, which would also include food service, our bus drivers, the people who didn't have the option to work remotely. So that's what that dollar amount is, and then the 1.5 is just the teacher one, transition stipend.
Okay. And do you know roughly how many employees that is? It just doesn't seem like it's equaling up with the 3.8 million to the 1,000 that we're going to give out.
We have estimates based on some of the lists that we received for the vaccination priority list. I believe, and Renee Weatherless is on here if she knows exactly, I want to say around 3,000 was the estimate.
Yes, it was over 3,000 employees.
Okay, thank you.
All right, please continue.
Thank you. Next slide, please. This is the retention stipend. This stipend will go to all of our current employees that choose to come back and work for us next year. They went through this unprecedented year, they stuck through it, and they're coming back, and we're so happy to have them. What this would be a one-time payment of up to $1,200. We have a tiered system here as well. To receive the $1,200, you would either be half-time to full-time, a 0.5 FTE to 1.0 FTE. This would include your TAs, teachers, most food service, health assistants. Even though we know maybe a TA only works 6 hours, they would be considered full-time and receive the full amount. Employees who work less than half-time would receive half the amount, $600. And then we also added in monies available for subs and supplemental employees. If they worked 10 days, they'll receive the amount of $300. Please note that long-term subs would receive the full amount. We're very excited about this stipend. We have it targeted to be paid the payday before fall break, and it isn't going to be a payment broken up. It is a full payment of $1,200, and the estimated price tag on this is $9.2 million, also to be funded out of ESSER.
All right, any questions on this specifically? All right, please continue.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Compensation. What we're asking for is for the board to allocate and to approve a request to have one step increase for each employee group. I do need to backtrack and explain a little bit surrounding this. One of the reasons we are coming to you now, which seems a little bit early as compared to some other years, there recently has been in the news, surrounding areas, maybe other school districts, other nearby educational entities have been faced with reductions in force, furloughs. There's been a lot of uncertainty. We've had people wondering, is TUSD going to be facing the same thing next year? What we want to do is tell our employees we are confident in moving forward next year, and we also want to make sure that you're ensured a step increase. This is very important for employees to feel that sense of security and safety moving forward. That said, I need to make it very clear that for many of these groups, they want to continue discussions. For example, if we talk about TEA with regard with their white collar and their consensus, same thing with AFSCME, they want to have further discussions about 208, 301. So we're asking for the guarantee of one step as the board proceeds with budget discussions and analysis of where monies are going to go. But do know that these groups are still wanting to talk. There's a lot of unknowns with different funding sources at this moment. Just even highlighting Eli, they are very positive about the stipends, not just for themselves, but a lot of their own employees want the stipends for their staff. The principals were there and the APs were there, and they want the staff that was there also to benefit from the stipends. So it's been a positive discussion related to the stipends. The compensation, I think people are leery of finalizing the compensation plan in hopes that there's going to be more money available, which I completely understand. But what we're asking for is a guarantee of one step moving forward to next year.
Ms. Count?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva.
So Dr. Trujillo, if we're ready to move forward on parts of this plan, but not everything, can we split this vote into different pieces? Because I feel more comfortable. Marisela, can you put forward the first slide? Yeah, I feel comfortable with the 2021 stipend, that proposal. And I feel comfortable moving forward with guaranteeing a 1% for all of our groups, because all of them have Me Too language anyway, and we're not closing the door. I do think it's important for us to let our employees know that we have not laid people off during this pandemic, and we're going to continue to honor our employees, and we want them to stay. We don't want them to be concerned that they might not have a job. So I agree with those two. I think, can you flip to the next slide where it's is that the 21? The 21-22 stipends, since this is something that we're not going to be rolling out until fall break next year, I think we have some time to get some information together and just get some, just have a little more time to think about it. But I would like to move the first slide and the last slide as far as voting for those two. Dr. Trujillo, is that something that we could do without causing too much chaos?
Absolutely, President, Governing Board member. I'm sorry, I sometimes forget and I put my computer audio on. So I do Zoom all day, so it's hard to get used to the new normal here. But absolutely, I think if there is one aspect of this plan that we're passionate, that the employees are in pins and needles about, and another aspect that my team is personally passionate about, the employees of the district want to know what adjustments are going to be made to their base salary. What's their paycheck going to look like next year? Not necessarily in a stipend, but what's built into their salary, because that's retirement, that's what benefits are paid on. So the increase, the one step, to me is probably the biggest item that I would like to see voted on. The second biggest that we're really, really passionate about is the stipends for all of those employees system-wide that very proudly got up in the morning during the scariest parts of one of the scariest times that we've all lived through, this pandemic, and they came to work and they fed kids and they drove kids and they put meals together and they cleaned schools and they came and they proudly served this district. They were in learning spaces supervising kids when the governor dropped that executive order forcing the schools to be open. And it has been too long since we've been able to say thank you in a very, very meaningful way. And tonight's stipend represents that opportunity to thoroughly thank them for that service. So these are the two items, you named them, that I would love to see voted tonight. There is a little bit of time to get at the 21-22. And I think we can certainly bring that back with additional governing board feedback and take action on that in the coming weeks.
So with that, Ms. Counts, I'd like to move those two slides, slide number 1 and slide number 3.
Okay, Mr. Ross, do we need to divide the question, or does she need to make an amendment to pull that one piece?
Ms. Counts, there's no amendment required because Ms. Grijalva has made a motion for those two.
Okay.
And division of question is by right by the board members anyway. So you have that motion before the board, although I don't recall hearing a second yet.
I'll second. But do we need to vote on that retention piece then, after we vote for the other two?
If a motion is made.
Okay. Otherwise, it just goes, and then we'll come back later.
All right. Ms. Count?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva.
I would love to see that item come back. Even at our next meeting is fine. It just felt like there was still some opportunity to work through some details. It may look just like it does right now, but I don't feel as comfortable moving that one.
Okay. Board member comments, questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So Ms. Grijalva, she's asked, just because this is kind of my first time going through this, she's asking we're separating compensation and we're still going to do the vote on retention?
So we're doing the stipends for the transition and for those that were in the schools and working directly with our kids. All those that were listed on the first slide for, was it like COVID compensation? What did we title it? That's what we're voting on. And then we're also voting on the one step right now for everybody.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Ms. Counts, if I can add a little bit to that, it's basically this last year. So school year 2021 is what it's basically a thank you to those employees that walked on campus, that provided food security for our kids, that drove buses, that our food service, our custodial crews, everyone that was working with our students. That's a thank you for them. And then the last piece is the compensation, basically just saying everyone is minimally going to get one step. It doesn't mean that we're closing the door on any more conversation. It's just everyone will get minimally one step. And I think that's important because we do have neighboring districts that are rolling out their compensation plans. And I want to make sure that our teachers know what their compensation will look like next year.
So that the one step is guaranteed.
Okay.
So that everybody has that peace of mind. Okay, Dr. Ravi.
So, going back, I think this is a really important thank you, and for those of you who are listening tonight or listening to the recording, thank you for all the work that you did to, have our schools open for those who had to be on site, to keep things moving through those, first 3 quarters. And thank you for everyone who helped transition, us to successfully open our schools. I am very thankful to my daughter's teacher who was her remote teacher for 3 quarters and now is her in-person teacher this quarter, and thankful to everyone who just really helped us, do the best we can for our students in a really tough year. So thank you. I know this is just a small token of, our thanks, with these stipends tonight for the 2021 stipends, and just know that our thanks go beyond just monetary things, but really we're very grateful for everything everyone has done.
Thank you. I second that. Okay, Ms. Shah.
Thank you, Ms. Counts. I want to echo what Dr. Ravi said. We greatly appreciate all of the staff who came in and worked at our in-school sites when it was, so scary to do so. And so we thank you with this. But for all those employees who are teaching remote, I hope that we can, as a board, find a package that we all agree on that will work for you, and I'm sure it will come in the near future. So please keep a lookout for that. We're not going to forget about all the remote staff. We're putting together something for you. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Michelle, could you do a roll vote?
Yes. Ms. Grijalva?
Yes.
Dr. Devocia?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Counts?
Yes. Item passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just to repeat the thank you that Dr. Ravi so eloquently stated, it's been huge, and everybody's put in so much work, and this is a small token of our great, great appreciation.
Thanks.
Okay. And that moves us on to item 8.
Ms. Counts, before we move off this
Yes.
agenda item, can we talk about the retention stipend? Because I'll be open to move that to be passed
Oh,
tonight if
sure.
there is appetite amongst the board to do so. I think we had a chance to talk about it in executive session and kind of figure this out. And I think one goal of retention is not to do it after the fact, even though we have time until fall break when this is paid out. Our goal isn't to pay this out after the fact, but really set this out as soon as possible so teachers that are thinking about whether they want to stay with TUSD, whether they want to stay teaching, know this exists as soon as possible before they make that decision. So I think the sooner we can approve a retention stipend, the better, in terms of actually retaining the staff that we're trying to retain.
Could we put back up that slide, the retention one?
Yeah, can we pull up the retention slide, please?
So if there is a second, I'll move to move that item as well, or to adopt that item as well.
I'll second.
That was seconded by Ms. Shaw and moved by Dr. Ravi.
Ms. Counts?
Yes.
I agree with Dr. Ravi, and I do believe our board colleagues feel the same. I mean, I would, $1,200 will go a long way to so many of our families, and I'm on the personal opinion that I would love to see $1,200 across the board to everybody. I know I will vote with the majority of the board, but I can't stress enough about what our teachers are, doing, our food services, our custodial grounds, and everybody has kept this district running as best they could. And I think we and they have done a great job. And I think just hearing teachers at home, listening to my daughter in class every day, I know that the hard work's being done, and I just want to say that, I hear them and I hear their concerns, and we want to honor what the work that they're doing.
Thank you. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Ms. Counts. Absolutely, I want to echo what Ms. Luna Rose said. I'm sure there's a lot of employees who are looking at the screen and screaming at it, but I do also support across the board a $1,200 stipend to all employees. I think we've all had a difficult time with COVID, and I know that our half-time employees work just as hard. Some of them might not even be able to work full-time because of the job requirement. And so just for morale and all of that, I think would be good for us if we just across the board give out $1,200 stipends to everyone.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that I understood. So the proposal is not what we have on the screen. It is to give $1,200 to every employee, regardless of their FTE status.
No, so what I moved was a proposal on the screen, and so if that's going to be an amendment.
Okay. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure because what you're proposing or what you moved was the $1,200 for everybody, every employee, and then returning 0.5 or less would get $600, and then the supplementals would get the $300. That's exactly how it's on the screen. Is that right?
Correct. That's what I moved.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Ross, should we amend it to include all employees, or how do we? If I'm not mistaken, I think me and Ms. Luna Rose are for $1,200 across the board.
Right. I would support Dr. Ravi's proposal right now. I do think that if we're going to say $1,200 across the board, then we should go back to administration, have them break down the numbers, the people, everybody. Because I as much as I appreciate it, I also know that we have a lot of needs. We just passed a really big item, and we all talked about the things that weren't on those lists. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear on the budget implications before I vote on changing. I want to make sure that we have the numbers, which is why I asked to only vote on slides 1 and 3, because I do think that we might not all be on the same page for this one item.
I seconded this, thinking that it was with this current slide, and I support it as it's presented because it just mathematically makes sense. If you're 0.5 or less FTE, you get half of what a full-time employee does. So to me, it's the most logical, and that's why I'll be voting yes on this.
So point of order. So we have motion for amendment, right? And do we? I have my main motion, and then we have a proposal for an amendment to the motion.
But
that needs a second, right?
That's correct. And a vote on a possible amendment if a motion's been made for it.
If there's a second.
Right. If I may argue my case once more before we vote me out. I just want to reiterate that some of these part-time employees, like crossing guards, or what have you, a lot of these positions are only part-time, and some of those employees may want to work more, but maybe because of age or physical limitation, they can't. And so I think this being something for retention, and will, in the end, boost morale of all of our employees, I think it would bode well if we just across the board go with $1,200 stipend. And if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Meza, you could correct me, is it just $220,000 extra to add in all of the employees instead of just the full-time employees?
Ms. Gutierrez or Ms. Mesa?
Renee Weatherless had run the numbers on that. It might have been the 222, but then subtracting about 85 possibly. I'll defer to her. I just want to make one clarification that if we're going with the slide, it's 0.5 and above, not 0.5 and lower. So the 600 would go to the people below 0.5. So, Renee?
Yes, it was 222,000.
So even part-time employees at 0.5 with this proposal are receiving the retention stipend of $1,200. Right. To me, that's, as a person that's worked in education or social work for my adult life, it's very generous, and I think it's fair, and so I'm going to support this. Okay, not hearing a second for the amendment. Michelle, if we could vote.
So Dr. Gavosha motion and Ms. Shaw second is what I have.
I second.
You second, okay.
No. Ms. Counts?
Yes. Oh, I thought. Yes?
I would prefer, I'm going to abstain from this vote because I would prefer reaching out to our employee groups, talking to some people about, how they would feel, because I do think that there's a lot of benefit to it. I think I thought the cost would be significantly more to include all of our employees. But I just, the idea that it would boost morale, I would love to sort of do a little research on that. Mostly because I do think that it could be a very positive message for the district. Again, this is not something urgent. We're not even issuing checks, this check until October, fall break next year. So that's sort of where I am. And if we can get a greater consensus among the board and not have a split vote on something like a really great thing, which is retention stipends for our employees, I would prefer that. Yeah. I understand the desire to want to talk about it, but I do think that it would make more sense if we can get a greater consensus amongst the 5 of us.
Ms. Counts, I do want to just, thank you, point out that other school districts have done similar things just across the board, one stipend, and they don't nitpick at hours served. I understand the rationale behind that, and I definitely see that our full-time employees do work more, but we're a team. This is the TUSD team, and if we want to be help everybody out, I think just for this specific stipend, we should do it across the board.
Okay, Dr. Ravi.
I think this is a great proposal. In many ways, obviously we can tweak it if that's what the board majority decides to do. But again, this is another thank you. Thank you for all the staff, teachers, employees, staff who stuck with us through a difficult year and are working with us now. And thank you for sticking with us, through thick and thin into next year as well, because we're not going to be able to succeed. All the money that we discussed in terms of arts and music and interscholastics are going to be for naught if we don't have the staff in place to keep us going and to teach our students, my daughter and my twins that will be TUSD students in a few years, and everyone in our district. And I would say, just to kind of clarify again, this is if you're half-time and above, you're getting the full 1,200. If you're working less than half-time, if you're working 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 FTE, you're not getting nothing. You're getting a significant amount. $600 isn't something to be laughed at in terms of a thank you amount to help you decide to stay with us for another year at least and be with us into the next school year. So thank you to everyone again who's listening. We're thrilled that you are considering sticking with us next year, and this is just one way that we can show our thanks and to really help support you as you're making your decision to stay with TUSD for another year.
Okay.
Ms. Counts?
Yes.
I still, in my heart, want the 1,200, but I'm hearing Dr. Ravi, and I don't want to, and I heard Ms. Grijalva, I don't want to wait. I understand her concern and maybe speaking to some more groups, but I feel like if we get this done before the end of the school year, would be a big boon for the district. as opposed to maybe this is a vote that we're doing in the middle of the summer. I know it's not going to be until October, but I think, teachers and staff can go to bed tonight being like, oh, this money's coming to me. I am encouraged to, as much as, I do want to see it across the board. If we want to get this passed tonight, I'm encouraged to support Dr. Ravi's amendment.
Thank you for that explanation. I think that's a really good point. We're in the middle of hiring season, and it is important for our all of our staff to know where they are for next year, so that they can make good decisions for them and their families. Dr. Ravi?
I just want to say one thing. It's not just that we're in hiring season. Every other district is in hiring season.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, and so to make sure that our teachers stay with us, know that this is coming your way if you stay with us for the next year.
Yeah. And it's for all employees. So, all right, let's go ahead and vote.
Ms. Grijalva?
Yes.
Dr. Gribosha?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
No.
Ms. Counts?
Yes. All right. Item passes. Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez, do you need us to vote online? I've been really spotty about it.
I did not put the vote online. This way I can consult with Mr. Ross for the actual wording of the motion.
Great. Sounds good.
But I do have it documented.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And I know Dr. Ravi has a hard stop at 9 o'clock. We have 2 more agenda items and about 8 more minutes.
Right, the last 2 items are informational. We have a death in a family, so I need to be home at 9 o'clock
right.
for childcare.
Yeah, just to let the public know that that's why you're stepping out, and it is information items, so that's fine. Okay, Dr. Trujillo, item 8.1.
Item 8.1, as noted, Dr. Gravoy-Shaw did check in with us a few days ago, notified us of his hard stop time. All of the voting is done for the night. So now we just have a couple of brief updates on some very, very important items that I touched on in the superintendent's report. So last week we publicly debuted our summer academic programming, and here to talk about the extended summer academic recovery opportunities that we have available at all grade levels across the district. We have our summer school team, Heidi Aranda, Brian Lambert, Assistant Superintendent, Regional Assistant Superintendent, and of course our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Flory Hewitt. And I'm going to ask our team to be a little bit briefer because we've already put out a lot of information on this. It's available on our website. The district does have a standalone website now that any parent can get into on our main page for all of the details. And coming soon, we're going to have some sample schedules available so that our parents can see what a typical summer school day would look like, whether it's a Jumpstart program or it's the summer STEAM experience with elementary or credit recovery. So with that, I'll turn it over to the team.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Good evening, governing board members, President Counts, legal counsel. We're very excited this evening to bring to you our proposed program for our summer school experience. We really wanted to reimagine the way summer school is perceived generally. We know that there was a lot of academic loss and trauma this past year, so we really wanted to re-engage our students in the summer school experience. With that, I'm going to go ahead and transfer it over to Ms. Heidi Aranda to go over the extent of the program.
All right, good evening. So this is a general overview of the programs that we're offering. For K-8, we're offering a full steam ahead with TUSD 4-week program, which includes a Move On When Reading strand. For incoming freshmen, we will offer a 4-week Freshman Academy program focused on English language arts, math, and AVID, advanced via individual determination lessons, which prepare students to acquire study skills for success in high school. For students who have fallen behind in credits, we'll be offering 3 sessions at each high school, 2 in June and 1 in July from 8 to 2. In addition, 2 hub sites at Palo Verde and Tucson High will be offering credit recovery in the evening from 2:30 to 8. In July, we're going to be providing a Jumpstart program in the transition years of K-6 and 9, but we're also going to be inviting our 1st, 7th, and 10th graders who perhaps haven't been on campus yet this school year. Next slide. So our Full Steam Ahead program is going to offer a science, technology, engineering, arts, and math focused program. And really the purpose of this approach is to re-engage our learners in hands-on and relevant learning experiences and strengthen their academic identity. Next slide. So the dates are from June 2nd to 30th. It's a 4-hour program. Breakfast and lunch are included. Next slide. The instructional framework is as follows. The majority of the time will be spent in the STEAM engagement that provides both in-person and remote. It's aligned to all of the ELA and math standards as well as science, and includes a social emotional learning component. Then they'll also have 2 additional blocks throughout the day, one for English language arts, where they will be receiving specific English language arts targeted lessons, and also in mathematics, much like our targeted learning sessions provided. Next slide. The Move On When reading component this year is, well, every year is for students who do not make the cut scores for AZ on the AZ Merit 2 exam and are in danger of failing 3rd grade. So we provide an opportunity in the summer for students to demonstrate sufficient reading progress. Once the data is released from ADE, we will identify what hubs, what sites we will be offering this program at to address the particular students that we are targeting. A remote option will also be provided for Move On When reading. What it involves is a trained reading specialist who will facilitate small group instruction using an evidence-based ADE-approved intervention program. Next slide. So in order to provide students with the intense support they will need for Move On When reading, but also not deny them of the exciting programming of Full Steam Ahead, we will utilize a pull-out model, and Move On When reading students will be with the reading specialist during the reading and math block to receive 90 minutes of reading instruction. The Move On When reading specialist will also, however, be able to support 1st and 2nd grade students in targeted reading skills at those hub sites. Next slide. So transportation will be available at the elementary and middle school student levels within TUSD boundaries to the extent possible given the current driver shortage. They'll be using a hub model, which may indicate that students will be picked up in a different location than they might be used to, but ineligible riders will be funded through ESSER. And at the high school level, transportation is free and available through SunTran. Next slide. Many sites will also be offering specialized programs such as advanced learning experiences, Engage, dual language, English language development, and 21st century programming. Also, our self-contained exceptional education programs will be housed at Mary Meredith. At this time, I'm going to pause just for any questions in regards to K-8 programs before Mr. Lambert takes us through the high school programs.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Ms. Counts. So I'm seeing a lot of, science, technology, math. Where does the arts come in this? Because I know it's called STEAM, but I don't see any art in this presentation.
And it's how they're expressing that learning through perhaps some performing arts or visual arts, some language arts as well.
Okay, so they're just...
So it's not specifically like a pull-out program for music or orchestra or anything. It's embedded within the STEM learning.
Okay, and then so would this be like mostly on the computer? Because I saw some of the programs that were listed, and it seems like it's not really traditional learning. It's like on your computer, whether you're doing it remote or at the school site. Are they learning through the computer program, or is it like a teacher one-on-one with students?
No, it's actually hands-on, even some group work. It's really engaging relevant science STEM topics. So it actually is not on the computer. There is the students that will be remote will be given a materials packet, but it's all hands-on. It's not through, there are technology components, but it's not a technology program.
Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Okay, please continue.
All right. Mr. Lambert, next slide.
All right, so the high school credit recovery is going to be similar to what we have done in the past. However, it's going to be free to all students. Normally, there's a $50 registration. It's going to be free to all students that are wanting to make up credits for classes they may have failed this year or previous years. We're going to be offering classes with 3 different sessions, 2 in June, 1 in July, at all of our high schools, except for Innovation Tech. We also will be providing PM sessions starting at 2:30 to 8 at an Eastside location at Palo Verde, and then Central with Tucson High. Our goal is to provide the traditional credit recovery where students, if we have enough students, say that need algebra, we would have a traditional algebra teacher giving direct instruction. However, if we maybe only had 3 kids who needed biology, 2 kids who needed maybe a finance class, we would be putting them on the Apex credit recovery. That's the normal credit recovery we run during the school year. So that is how it's going to go each day. Next slide. For Freshman Academy, this is focused on our incoming 9th graders. We're going to be providing that transition into high school, focusing on math, reading, and study skills with the AVID strategies. The normal day schedule would be 90 minutes of English language arts, 90 minutes of math. Both of these are using iReady, which is a online instruction platform. It won't be solely online. They won't be sitting just at a computer. That'll be a supplementary to the teacher's direct instruction, as well as that 1 hour of AVID strategies, providing them with that organization, study skills as they enter into 9th grade. Next slide. And of course, we will continue to have our Cole Catalina online learning experience. This is going to be for those students that want to get ahead or want to replace a current grade. The cost of this is going to be the traditional $50 and then $75. This is the normal way we've always run for those students that want to get ahead. The students that we want in person on campus are those students that really have failed a class, and we need to provide them that quality instruction so they can graduate with their class on time. Next slide. Now, Jumpstart, which is going to be in July, that's going to be targeted to incoming kinders and first graders, our incoming 6th and 7th graders, and our incoming freshmen and sophomores. This is going to be targeted to kind of get them ready for the new academic school year for 21-22. That's going to be the 2 weeks in July, and it will be a transition where they have 1 week off and then they start school. So really a kind of a jump start to exactly what the school year is going to be holding for them. Next slide. So the goal of our Jumpstart program is to promote the positive school engagement, establish relationships with teachers, students, and families, create a positive learning community, acclimate students to what it's like to be on campus with routines and procedures, and allow teachers to perform assessments to identify student needs prior to the beginning of school. They'll be focusing on math, reading, and social emotional learning. Next slide.
That's
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Ms. Count?
Yes, Ms. Grihova.
Yeah, I'm wondering how we're funding this with ESSER dollars?
Yes, that's correct.
And then, so do we have, what are the class sizes going to look like? Because I'm assuming not every student will want to participate, but this is happening on every campus. So there'll have to be, we'll have custodial staff, we'll have a principal or some site leadership of some kind, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so there will be coordinators at all of the sites that are coordinating the program. At the K3 level, we're trying to keep our class sizes around 12, and perhaps in grades 4 to 8, around 15. That's our goal. If we can accomplish that, it all depends on the interests of the program.
And I want to say how much I appreciate for the jump, including the current, so that to me is when my daughter was going into middle school from 5th to 6th, that was that program. And so because our students, like my son didn't have that opportunity in middle school, I do think that some of the organization was lacking in how he approached the work at middle school versus how my daughter had, that week or actually it was 2 weeks to get ready. So I do love that you're including all of those transitional grades. I think that's going to be really helpful. And I know that a lot of families missed that opportunity for their kids. So thank you for that.
Ms. Aranda, was there more than just the kinder and first? I thought it was just the kinder and first for Jumpstart.
Jumpstart is kinder and first, 6th and 7th, and 9th and 10th. And we included that next grade for the reasons that Ms. Grihova is talking about, that our current 6th graders missed that sort of Jumpstart program, and some of them still have not been on campus if they're remote at this time. So we want to give them that opportunity to also acclimate to being on campus and routines and procedures and study skills like she described.
Great, thank you. Any questions, board members? Not hearing any questions. Thank you so much. This is a very exciting program, and I'm happy that we're able to fund it at this level for this upcoming year. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 7.2, budget study session. Oh, I'm sorry, item 8.2. See, it's getting late. I'm getting groggy. AZ merit testing administration plan update.
Yes, AZ merit testing, as I've noted before, and we know that it's not popular, but the Arizona Department of Education has mandated that all schools in Arizona offer AZ merit testing, and that students that are appearing in person, they're required to test. And so we are responsible for facilitating the test. So here to just give a brief overview of the district's testing plan, which allows schools quite a bit of autonomy and flexibility to design a testing plan that's local, that addresses the size of their student body, and that gives them the autonomy to use those local resources in the best way possible within the testing window. So Dr. Freitas, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Good evening, President Counts, governing board members, Dr. Trujillo, Mr. Ross. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about state testing, which includes AZ Merit, or this year it's called AZM2. And so these are the dates. And what's important to note here is that for grade 3, that the end date is about 2 weeks earlier than grades 4 through 8 and 10. And that's because of the state needs the data for move on when reading calculations, because they need to get that data back to the school districts before the end of May so that we can identify those students. Next slide, please. So it's not just AZ Merit that we're testing right now. We also have the AZ Sci, which is our science assessment, a state test, and we also have the ACT. So we've got a lot going on in April. All right, next slide, please. So what we did was we put together a committee to help plan out district plan. And so as you can see, it was a very sophisticated and lots of experts on our committee. I believe we had 9 different departments collaborating and schools, about 23 people. So we tried to get everyone's voice at the table. So next slide, please. So what this committee was tasked with doing was coming up with a training schedule for the school test coordinators, making sure they all got trained in time, coming up with options, test scheduling options for schools so that they had something to work with. And we had protocols for technology logistics that those cross over into safety protocols, so cleaning of student devices and also making sure that the browsers, the secure browsers were all set up. We also had, in addition to that, school safety protocols, which are district safety protocols, and also the cleaning of devices. We also communicated out to parents about the testing, the process and procedures. And then the last thing was we supported the schools in their efforts to complete the school testing plan. So next slide, please. So this is what we had as products. The first one are the site test plans, which each site has posted to their webpage. Each school also is documenting parents who choose not to send their children to school to take the school tests, and that is a requirement by ADE. And we also have protocols for safety and cleanliness to minimize any potential transmission of COVID. Next slide, please. All right, and now these are some frequently asked questions, so I thought that I would just throw them out so that we're very clear on what the state requirements are. So the first frequently asked question is, are these state assessments required? Are they a requirement this year? And the answer is yes, they are. And the state has said that all students, so in-person and remote students, must be given the opportunity to come to school in person to test. And so ADE does not have any testing exemptions. The other question that we frequently get is, well, can a student opt out of testing? And the answer is no. The state says all students who attend school, right, if they attend school in person during the state testing window, they must be given the opportunity to test. Now, what's important about this is that the state has waived the 95% tested rule for this year. And so they actually had to get a waiver from the feds. And so because we don't have a 95% tested rule, for this year, if a parent does not feel comfortable with in-person testing, that student can stay home during the testing window and not be tested, and the school will not be penalized for that. So that's very important. Next slide, please. So here are a couple more frequently asked questions. And I believe Heidi talked about the summer school programming for Move On When Reading. So this is also part of Move On When Reading. So does move on when reading still apply for third grade, and is it still high stakes? And the answer is yes. So we have, just over 3,000 third graders, and in a typical year, ADE recommends about 50 students or so to be retained. And so we strongly recommend to the parents of those students to attend summer school to show growth so that they can be promoted to fourth grade. This year, however, it's important to note that a student cannot be penalized for lack of data. So if a third grade student doesn't test, there's no way for the state to know if they need to be retained because there's lack of data. And then finally, will the state assessment, so AC Merit, and will be used for the school letter grade? And the answer is no, that the letter grades have been paused this year. And so the state tests will not be used to judge a school's performance. Next slide, please. So in summary, why are we testing this year? And ADE has maintained that the AC Merit will provide important information to parents, teachers, and schools that will help us understand students' progress on grade level content material. And in addition, this information will give schools ELA and math and science data that will help teachers determine if instruction needs to be adjusted and and how successful students are or what support they need in reading, writing, language, and mathematics. And with that, I conclude my presentation and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Freitas. Board members, any questions?
Yes, Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Luna-Rose.
Ms. Freitas, thank you for your presentation. I think this is just more a comment. I want to thank you and of course the district and all the teachers and staff for putting this together. As a parent, we received a lot of emails from our principal, Ms. Nicolosi over at Alice Vale. She's very connected to the parents and letting us know what's going on. I myself, we kept our daughter remote. Two things. One, these are just comments. I understand that the district had to do this because of the state, but I actually don't think that the state should have put our kids through the testing during this time. I think it's honestly, I am in agreement that we should know where our kids are academically, but they couldn't have just tried to one more year to not do testing. So shame on the state for doing that. And number two, just as a little quirky point, because my daughter is remote, she and I've already talked about this school, but I'm not sure if this is going on in other schools. She's being counted absent every day because she's not taking the test in person. So I keep getting the emails and the calls, and I'm hoping that that's just a sort of weird coding thing. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, Ms. Grijalva.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Luna-Rose, for highlighting the shame on the state. It has been an incredible frustration for me as a parent and also as a board member to have to field the emails from so many parents that have chosen to keep their child remote all year, to get emails from their school saying, the state is requiring us to have people come on, students come on in person for testing, and that there's this, language requirement that we as the district have to do where we can't do anything to discourage students from participating. And when asked, we can let them know that there will be no consequences academically for their student, and there won't be any consequences, as far as letter grades for the district, but we have to, offer the option and really strongly encourage every child to come on campus. That has been really frustrating for so many parents. And so I have not had to deal with the absent issue, but it is, I know it's coming up like tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. But it is, I know that our teachers know where our children are academically, and I have full faith that our teachers will be able to continue to direct our children in the best academic sense. But they don't need to be assessed by the state to find that out.
Ms. Counts?
Yes. Who is that?
Oh, sorry. This is Ravi. I think I used a link that has. That's why my name's Adelaide Tigrahalva. But it's me.
Yes.
Sorry,
Dr.
I'm driving and I'm calling into this. I just want to comment as well. Thank you for the district, and thank you, Dr. Freitas, for the presentation and everything you're doing. As a parent of an in-person third grader, I can't think of a more waste of my daughter's time right now. I'm a nerd. I love testing. I love all those things. So that's not the issue. But gosh, after the year that she has, for her to be sitting through days of testing as an in-person learning third grader is like such a wrong thing to do. And so, I'm just want to say that publicly and up front. And I think that this is a really bad decision on the state's part to force districts to do this. And I echo what Ms. Luna Rose and Ms. Grijalva said as well. So just want to add my own comments as a parent of a third grader who's going through this right now.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Ms. Counts. I have a question, Dr. Freitas. So I'm looking at the dates for the Arizona Merit testing, and I know it has begun already, but if parents who are listening have already, their kids are already in process of taking some of these tests, and they're just getting this information now, are those parents able to pull their kids from the testing, even if they've taken a few days already? How would that, I know there will be some data on that child, but could they pull them before they finish all of the exams and then have them be exempt from the repercussions of that data?
So thank you. So we are moving into a heavy testing period this week. And so if a parent is uncomfortable with the idea of testing, they are welcome to keep their child home at any point. So it doesn't matter if they've taken one test or no test, they can keep their children home during testing.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for the presentation and for all the work.
Thank you. And thank you very much, all of you governing board members with children in TUSD. So thank you.
Okay, future meeting dates and agenda items. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Counts, members of the governing board. This is a promotion, advertisement, plug for April 27th is the big meeting where the district will be giving the public and the governing board the first look at a strategic 3-year expenditure plan for the ESSER funds that have been received by the district, specifically in the areas of academic recovery, recruitment and retention, PPE, instructional technology and devices, and technology infrastructure, and also transportation, and socio-emotional health and socio-emotional learning, which will involve counselors and social workers. So because of the large and expansive nature of this item, it will probably only be the only item on the agenda. We'll still have regular consent. We'll still have regular, there'll be other regular board recognitions, but we're going to keep the action and the study items extremely lean because the board is going to need almost the entirety of that meeting to go through the 3-year expenditure plan.
Thank you. Thank you for the notice. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Good night.
Good night.